Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zenin Fanfics. Today we are featuring What If Deku Was Class 1A Rescued Kitten? The story is written by Ash the Nerd 4 on Wattpad. Before we start, please like and subscribe for more content. Now let's dive into the story. Eraserhead is tired, even more bone-tired than usual. His classroom full of brats show potential this year, which means he isn't allowed to expel them all without any valid reasons. The perverted grape is close to being gone, so he still has all 20, but last year he ended up with none. This is bad for him, as he is not able to nap at whatever odd time he pleases and is forced to rely on coffee for energy instead. He still naps constantly in class, but the brats are very talkative and loud this year, so he normally ends up just eavesdropping on their drama. Don't get him wrong, he is proud to train a decent generation of heroes for once, but he needs his sleep more. His patrol schedule is mainly late at night, and it is currently raining. His cold suit clings heavily to his body, and he just drank the last of his caffeine-infused jelly pouches. Just as he is about to start heading home to his husband and son as his shift is nearing its end, the cry of a young child reaches his ears. The underground pro hero uses his scarf to jump down from the roof he was on and follows the cries into a small back alley. His eyes grow wide in worry at the sight of a tiny child shivering in a wet cardboard box. The toddler is soaked and crying his little heart out. He is dressed in an overly large white shirt that reads "shirt on" in kanji, and he has several features of a cat. His ears and baby tail have a black, dark green, and gray marbled pattern like a Maine CN. His fingers are a bit stubby, more like paws than hands with tiny pads on them, and possibly claws as well. His hair is wet and curly, mainly dark green, but with highlights of gray and black mixed in as well. The water is clearly bothering him as he struggles to cover his ears and shake the water off, but it was raining much too hard to make any difference. It is clear the boy has been here for a while and been abandoned, as the box he is in has "free" scribbled on it, as if he were just an animal to be adopted or left to die. It is clear that the cat-like child had developed a quirk that basically turned him into a Nico and is no longer wanted. Shoyuta thought of Officer Sansa, Detective Tsukachi's partner, whom he will have to deal with later, and will most likely hiss in anger when he hears about this case. This, unfortunately, is quite a common occurrence for the hero, as many parents have become known to abandon children for their quirks. The society is so obsessed with powerful, hero-worthy quirks that many are labeled with useless or villainous quirks and hated on, or just plain out abandoned. The Hero Commission is no help with this either, as heroes with strength quirks constantly rise to higher ranks using brute force, and people such as rescue heroes are lower, as if their jobs are less important when they often come in to save civilians from wreckage the brute heroes caused in villain fights. Eraser hates this fact, but all he can do is comfort the children until he can get them help. The foster system is extremely flawed, and he constantly is pulled into cases gone wrong, but he does his best to heavily research any family a kid he saves is going into and keeps tabs on them until they age out of the system. This child particularly is tugging on his heart due to his not-so-secret love for children and obsession with cats, as he has been known for taking home a few strays. This includes both children and cats, as him and his husband have fostered several children in need of protection for dangerous family members, and even adopted one. Their son, Hitoshi, who is at home and probably still awake as he struggles with insomnia. Still having not seen the man, the child continues to cry, and Shoyuta walks closer to comfort the boy. "Hey, little one, what are you doing out here all alone?" The cat boy looks up at him with wide green eyes that hold slit like pupils and let out a sniffle. "I don't T-kin now, and mister. W is with TH and mama, but my head hurted and indeed W is H here. A and N now, I am par RT cat T." He cries out and winces as he pulls at his new ears. The tired man scoops the little one's shivering body into his warm arms and rubs his back as tiny and slightly clawed hands sink tightly into the hero's shirt. "It's probably your quirk. The cat ears and tail make you a Nico," the man quietly explains to not scare the child. "Can you tell me your name?" "My name is Izuku," he says happily with a little chirp, causing Aizawa to smile under his scarf. "Well, Izuku, how about we clean you up at my house? and then we can look for your mama." The tiny purring that was rumbling from the child's body pauses for a short second, confirming Aizawa's fear that Izuku was abandoned, but doesn't push the subject and continues to rub his back to warm him up. Pushing down the boiling rage that yearns to hunt down Izuku's mother, Shoyuta gently uses his scarf to dry Izuku's ears to calm him. The little boy's body tries to melt into his as he is partially dried off, and his quiet purrs turn into a loud rumble. Little claws start making biscuits on his shirt and scarf as Izuku slowly drifts off to sleep, and there is no way Shoyuta is going to wake him up anytime soon. Naturally, this means the visit to the police station can wait, and our hero carefully hops roof to roof toward his home. Legally, he has to at least alert the station of the child, so he shoots Nizu a short text saying he found a new stray, and somehow the rat already knows he doesn't mean a cat. The UA principal responds with a paw-clapping emoji he created as he refuses to use the human hands and promises to have the paperwork ready for him in the morning. With that fixed, the typical 15 minutes trip home turns into 20 as he is not going to risk waking the precious cargo held protectively in his scarf. He can't help but smile whenever Izuku scrunches his nose in annoyance as water droplets occasionally drop from his hair and run down his button nose. Izuku doesn't wake once for the entire trip, and the hero lets out a happy sigh as his family's house comes into view. Their house is a nice-sized home with 2 floors for bedrooms and 3 baths. His husband Hisashi, better known as Present Mike, had insisted on 4 bedrooms so that their house can hold a spare bedroom for Nights Namiri visits and an extra room as they both want to adopt a second child. Their house placket reads Yamazawa, as they combine their last names after marriage, but to also hide from villains as only their closest friends and colleagues know about their marriage. At work, they still go by their old last names, but their son took on their combined name, and hopefully Izuku might take it too. Walking up to the front door and pulling out his house key, Aizawa checks for the 100th time to see if Izuku is still asleep and shoots Zashi a text warning him not to scream. Having done this once before with her first son, Shoyuta prepares to start up his quirk as he opens the front door. As expected, Hisashi is waiting for him on their couch, half asleep, and opens his mouth to squeal at the ears picking out of his scarf. Eyes flashing red, Hisashi sheepishly closes his mouth and shrugs an apology. Leaning forward, he gives his tired husband a kiss and pulls down the scarf to get a better look at what's hidden inside. The voice hero nearly squeals again as his husband's hand flies to cover his mouth and shush him once more in warning not to wake the child. "Sho, where did you find him? You didn't kidnap him, did you?" Hisashi only half jokes. "Of course not, Zashi. I found him in an alley with a box that said free." He doesn't remember how he got there, but it sounds like he got his ears and tail as part of his quirk, and his mom abandoned him. "I already told Nizu." Shoyuta sighs and glares down at Tigger as his orange body slams into the man's leg and meows loudly, wanting to meet the house's newest addition. "Dad? Papa? What's going on?" Their son's voice pulls Shoyuta away from glaring at the cat and sees Hitoshi standing at the bottom of the stairs. The teen had walked in to see his papa, trying to squeal at what looked like another cat with his dad hiding them away in his scarf. "I found a toddler during patrol, Tosh. He is going to stay with us for a bit. You can meet him in the morning." His dad responds while staring at his papa, as if daring him to disagree. "Oh, cool. Night." Clearly not fully processing what was said as he is half asleep, the 2 men watch their son make his way back upstairs. Looking back down at the chaotic orange cat, Shoyuta tells him to wait till morning too and heads towards his and Zashi's room. Ignoring the man's words, Tigger zooms ahead into the bedroom, while their main San, Lady, lazily follows at Hisashi's feet. Knowing that Bandit likes to hide and watch new arrivals for a day or 2 before showing himself, Shoyuta rolls his eyes at the suspicious blue eyes watching them leave the living room. With 2 of their 4 cats in their bedroom, and the 4th more than likely with Hitoshi, Shoyuta quickly changes out of his gear and into some fluffy sweatpants and a shirt. The shirt is a struggle as Izuku is still clinging onto him, but Hisashi helps pull his claws off and switches him onto the voice hero's chest. Pulling back the sheets on the bed, Hisashi slips into bed and laughs quietly as Tigger hops up beside him and sniffs Izuku's ears. The orange tabby jerks back in confusion and attempts to tap at Izuku's ears, but gets pushed away by Shoyuta and scolded. "Shoo, Tigger, let us sleep, you crazy cat." With a nod, the married couple agree to discuss everything in the morning. Both have seen many children abandoned due to their quirks before, but it was always a delicate situation to explain to such young minds. It is one of both heroes' least favorite part of their job, but a necessary one. Not sure how Izuku would react if he woke up in an unknown room alone. Izuku stays with them. With Izuku already asleep and cuddled into Hisashi's chest, Shota leans over him and gives his partner a goodnight kiss. Closing their eyes, they go to sleep, and when morning comes, Izuku had managed to wiggle himself between both their arms, enjoying some hero cuddles. As Shoyuta wakes up, the gentle sound of purring fills the room, and lays still as he realizes an annoyance that he woke up before his alarm. He looks over to the side to glance at his clock and glares at it as it reads that at 5:57 a.m. His glare grows harder as his sleep-riddled brain slowly processes that he should have been able to sleep for at least 15 more minutes. Slipping his heavy eyelids shut once more, he prepares for blissful sleep to take him away again. Shoyuta moves to shift slightly into a more comfortable position when one of his cat's ears flicks him on the chin and his eyes flash red to scare them away. To his surprise, it isn't one of his family's 4 cats that greet him. Cuddled up on the top of his chest is Izuku, all curled up in a ball and tightly gripping his put-your-hands-up shirt Hisashi had gifted him with last Christmas. If he can help it, the fact he wears his husband's merch will be a secret he keeps till the grave, as despite his family's teasing, he is not a softie. Morning show. Hisashi sings quietly from the doorway, coffee mug in hand, and smiles sweetly at the tiny boy resting on his man's chest. Our tired hero softly grunts in response, as it is still too early to be up, and claims that he won't be up till the coffee black as his soul is ready. One flat white coming up. Hisashi teases and disappears from the doorway. Sighing in defeat, Shoyuta gently shakes the toddler awake as he really does need to get up soon. Izuku softly whines and tries to push away the hand, disturbing his rest. "Wake up, Izuku, we got to get up," the hero says quietly as to not startle him, and Izuku's "I flutter up." He pushes off Shota's chest quickly as he looks around in surprise, taking in his new settings, and smiles when his eyes return to his rescuer. "Good morning, mister. Thank you for saving me last night," Izuku says happily with another grin, showing off his tiny fangs, before getting distracted by his new tail and beginning to fiddle with it in fascination. The underground hero softly chuckles at the boy's actions only to laugh harder when the movement of his chest causes Izuku's ears and tail to puff up in surprise. He warns Izuku he is about to move again and gives him a few seconds to latch on before standing up with a hand in his back to keep him steady. Due to his complete focus on the kitten-like toddler, Shoyuta fails to notice Hisashi sneak a few photos of the two, along with a video of their interactions. Hidden in the corner of the doorway, the voice hero videos for as long as he dares before scurrying off to not press his luck on getting caught. He rushes to the kitchen and prepares the coffee he had promised Shoyuta. Failing to resist the temptation of keeping such a cute event to himself, Hisashi pulls his phone out again and pulls up the UA group chat his husband is not in. The staff of UA has 3 group chats: their official chat, the gossip chat, and the most important one that is used whenever the caffeine-addicted man disappeared in nap and is impossible to find. UA chat. Where is our caterpillar? Present mic / loudmouth speaker high volume. Midnight / 18 plus smiling face with horns. Ectoplasm / clones. Snipe / pew pew pistol. Hound dog / you'll need help. Nizu / rat Satan. 13 / space lord. Vlad King / Dracula a man vampire light skin tone. All might / skill might. Recovery girl / kiss kiss sparkling art. Lunch rush / food. Power loader / dig dig construction. Loudmouth speaker high volume. Inserts video. Show found a little boy with a Nico type of quirk abandoned during patrol last night. I can't believe anyone would abandon this kid, angry face. He is so cute. Loud mouth, speaker, high volume. Anyways, Nizu. Can we bring him with us? There's no way we're leaving him home alone, and I think both show and are already attached. Rat Satan, I have no problem with this arrangement as long as I get to meet him and he doesn't cause too much trouble. He could even stay with me if needed. 18 plus, smiling face with horns, aw. He's so cute. I want to meet him too, Zashi. But how could anyone abandon such an adorable child? Pouting face, also no offense, Nizu, but I don't trust you with the little bean. Pew Pew Pistol, I agree with Namuri. I don't trust you with a child, Nizu. But I would like to meet him as well. Kiss Kiss, Sparkling Heart, do you know how old he is? He is quite small. Bring him by my office, so I can give him a checkup. Loudmouth, speaker, high volume. Will do, Chio. I'll bring him by the teacher's lounge after, so you all can meet him. Loudmouth, speaker, high volume is offline. As Hizashi looks up from his phone once more, Hitoshi walks up with Stalker in his arms and asks if he is spying on Dadzawa again. Being the chaotic father he is, Hizashi happily shows his son the video he had just added to his quickly growing Dadzawa collection. As the video finishes, Hitoshi hands the phone back and demands in a deadpan voice that he must be sent a copy of the video immediately for blackmail or he shan't survive. His parents had made the mistake of letting him stay with Nizu on occasion, and the rat's obsession with blackmail had rubbed off on him. Dressed in a uniform identical to the one he had on yesterday, Shoyuta enters the room with Izuku on his hip. The toddler looks cleaner than the night before, with most of the dirt on him having been wiped off, and dressed in a present mic shirt much too large for him. The little boy is babbling facts about the hero, still unaware that said man is in the same room as him. And Shoyuta has a hidden smile in his scarf as he listens and nods along. Hitoshi pulls out his phone to video the kid's reaction after putting his cat, Stalker, down as his dad whispers something in Izuku's ear and the boy gasps and kicks his legs in excitement. Pressing the record button, Hitoshi smirks behind his phone as his papa states, "Hello there, little listener," and receives a little squeal in response. Izuku tries to stutter out a few words but can't and just stuffs his head into Shuta's shoulder in embarrassment, whining to the hero for being a meanie by letting him ramble about present mic with the man in the room to hear him. Proper introductions are made, and Izuku is happy to meet them, but refuses to give his last name, stating that just Izuku is fine as he doesn't want to get his mama in trouble. No one pushes the subject and prepare to eat the miso soup Hizashi has prepared for breakfast when the cats make their presence known. To be specific, Lady meows loudly to demand breakfast and glares in attempt to tell the humans to hurry up. Stalker is still near Hitoshi, staring silently for food, but looks away to swat at Tigger when he tries to lay on top of her. Bandit runs out from his hiding place under the couch and plants himself by the food bowls to snatch up the food first. Izuku wiggles in his seat, excited, and proclaims that the fancy kitty looks like him, as they have similar pointed ears, long fluffy fur, and marbled patterns in their fur. Hitoshi laughs at the name Izuku gave Lady and introduces him to the cats while Hizashi pulls out their food. The fancy cat is named Lady. She's a main CN and acts like a spoiled brat, but can be sweet sometimes too. Papa Zashi is the one that spoiled her, but Dadzawa found her. The orange menace is Tigger. He's an American shorthair and is a constant ball of energy. I sometimes think he believes he is a dog, and we got him shortly after I was adopted. Stalker found her way to our home by following Dadzawa after a patrol. She is a Russian blue and loves to follow us all around the house. Last but not least is Bandit. He is a bit jumpy as Dadzawa found him to fight against a few other cats and healed him. He is an Ojo Suzules, and once he was all healed up, he didn't want to leave. He might take a while to warm up to you, but he's like that with everyone new, so don't feel bad. Izuku bobs his head up and down happily, and Hitoshi worries his head will fall off if he nods much harder. Multiple buzzes from Hizashi's phone grabs everyone's attention, and Hitoshi knows his papa has been caught red-handed as his dad's eyes narrow in suspicion. School doesn't start for another hour and a half, and despite generally being an energetic person, Hizashi is not a morning person. He almost never messages anybody until their short ride to UA around 7:30 once the coffee kicks in. The goofy look on his face that he gets when trying to hide something silly from his friends and family is clear as day and doesn't help matters either. Zashi, Shoyuta says in a "what did you do?" type of tone and places his coffee down on the table. He quickly picks it back up to hold out of reach when Izuku asks for a sip, but holds eye contact with Hizashi the entire time. They already had one son addicted to the caffeinated poison, and Izuku is much too young. Holding Izuku in one arm and his coffee in the other, out of the tiny one's reach, Shoyuta suddenly switches tactics and turns his attention to Hitoshi. He whispers something to Izuku and smirks when the boy responds with a happy, "Uh-huh. Snitch on your papa, and you can hold Izuku." The man bargains with his son while ignoring his husband's squawk of disapproval. Not even needing a moment to consider, Hitoshi blabs about the video, but coincidentally forgets to mention him wanting it for blackmail. "Traitor!" is all Hizashi has time to scream out before Izuku is plopped into Hitoshi's awaiting arms and runs from his husband's playful wrath. Videoing the chase of cat versus bird, Hitoshi smiles as Izuku's giggles can be heard throughout the room. Hizashi is caught and tangled up in Shuta's scarf quite quickly and left to dangle for a minute upside down in a cocoon. Hitoshi jokingly asks if they have to wait for Papa to sprout into a butterfly, and his dad grumpily responds that it is impossible for a cockatoo like Zashi to change species. This results in Hitoshi choking on his coffee and Izuku frantically hitting him on the back of the head to try and help him quit coughing. Once he regains his breath, his dad walks over to release the loud hero from his captivity. Hitoshi turns his head to look at Izuku and asks him if he wants to know a secret. Izuku nods, so Hitoshi leans to his ear to whisper, "You can call me Big Brother if you want." Izuku flashes his fangs as he happily smiles and embraces the teenager in a hug. Hitoshi has only known Izuku for less than an hour, but the kid has himself wrapped around his finger, and he knew for a fact the same could be said for his father's, and Izuku wasn't going to be leaving their custody anytime soon. After being given a few minutes to let all the BLD rush back into the rest of his body, Hizashi begrudgingly deletes the video as his husband watches grumpily over his shoulder. The one in the chat remained untouched, as did the copy of the video in his recently deleted folder, but what Shoyuta doesn't know won't hurt him. They quickly SWCH their focus onto the youngest member of the room and go to their storage closet to see if any of Hitoshi's old clothes from when he was younger will fit Izuku. The tiny toddler is still wearing the present Mike's shirt, and, as adorable as he looks, he is practically swimming in it. Hitoshi and Izuku sit down on the couch in the living room while his dad search and entertain themselves with 3 of the 4 cats surrounding them. Lady has herself draped across Hitoshi's lap and purring loudly as he scratches her behind the ears. Izuku is hidden underneath Tigger and Stalker and switches between purring with them and giggling as Stalker tries to give him a bath, and Tigger playfully bops him with his orange paws. Shoyuta and Hizashi re-enter the room with a large clear tote that is full of things from Hitoshi's childhood, as it has his name written on it, and the team blushes at the sight of it. "Papa, no," Hitoshi says as he hates how emotional Hizashi gets as he cries about how much his baby has grown and always pulls out embarrassing photos to look at. He knows this is revenge for snitching, and as his papa smiles at him mischievously, he leans back into the couch in defeat and refocuses on Lady. Shoyuta risks the wrath of Stalker as he pulls Izuku out from under her and settles the boy on his hip. The two glare at each other for a minute until Stalker backs down and lets out a murp as she presses her head on Izuku's leg before wandering off. "That was me, miserable," Izuku claims as he plops his head on Shuta's shoulder. Sharing is caring. Both Hizashi and Hitoshi laugh at hearing the underground hero being scolded for being mean to his cat. Hizashi pulls out some more recent photos from when the 3 of them celebrated his most recent birthday at the same cat cafe they go to every year and places them to the side. Izuku leans away from Shuta's hold to look into the tote and wiggles excitedly with a gasp and points to a purple shirt with cats on it. "Can I wear that?" he asks, and both men agree before he even has to pull out the kitten eyes to convince them. He gets dressed in the cat shirt, which is still much too big for him, but he could care less and gets a pair of blue cargo shorts to go with it. Izuku refuses to wear shoes as they hurt his toe pads and is very proud of the slightly matching outfit he chose for himself. With everyone dressed and having eaten breakfast, They pile into the car with Izuku held carefully in Hitoshi's lap, as they don't have a car seat small enough for him. It is a short drive to UA and fairly peaceful, although Hisashi receives another glare from his husband when he admits that he has already told their co-workers about Izuku. The glare goes away when Chiyo was mentioned, as Izuku does need to be checked out, and as they pull into UA's parking lot. It is an hour before school starts, as customary for teachers in case Nisa decides to spring a last-minute meeting on them. However, Nisa's current focus is on two teachers specifically, and, as if he were timing it, should his phone buzzes from a text sent from said rat right as Hisashi takes the key out of the car's ignition. A photo had been sent showing the paperwork that had been requested the previous night, ready to be filled, and patiently waiting for them on the principal's desk. It is adoption papers, and from the looks of it, the crazy rat has already tracked down Izuku's personal information and filled some of the paperwork out for them ahead of time. Hitoshi, hand over Izuku. We need to take Izuku to Recovery Girl to check on his health. We need you to go to Nisa's office and grab the paperwork he has for us. Shoyuda tells his son and playfully glares when Hitoshi teases about them already being attached, as if he isn't as well. Get going, or else I'll let your papa have Izuku all day in class instead of me. The man threatens, and even though all three know it to be a false threat, Hitoshi snorts and gently presses on Izuku's hands to remove his little claws from his uniform. Once Izuku is handed over to his dad, he starts heading over to where Nizu is waiting for him and definitely watching him through the cameras. The two worried fathers walk in the opposite direction as they head to Chiyo's office, worrying about Izuku's health, as he is visibly very small for his age and weighs much less than he should. As expected, Chiyo is waiting for the three of them in her office and gives the two men a sad smile at the sight of the tiny sleeping toddler with them. Izuku has latched onto Shoyuda again with his claws, and a soft rubble can be heard throughout the quiet room as he purrs. Not wanting to startle the boy too badly, he lightly runs the back of his finger along Izuku's ear to wake him up. Izuku leans into the finger and purrs louder, showing that he feels safe, causing a soft smile rarely seen by anyone but his family to grow on Shuda's face. Trying not to lean too close to the boy's possible sensitive ears, he whispers, "Izuku, can you wake up for me, kitten?" The toddler lets out a little huff of annoyance and slowly blinks awake as he pushes against the man's chest to look at his surroundings. A gasp escapes his mouth, and his ears perk up in excitement at the sight of Recovery Girl. "Hello, dearie. My hero name is Recovery Girl, but you can call me Granny Chiyo. Is it alright if I look you over and make sure you don't have any hurts?" The heroine asks gently to not scare the poor child. All three adults sigh in relief as the boy nods his head, but Shoyuda grips him slightly tighter as Izuku is nodding so fast he worries the kid will fall out his arms. "Do you want to stay in Shuda's arms or sit on the bed?" Chiyo asks, and Izuku responds that he wants to stay in Zawa's arms. Hisashi coos at the adorableness and almost loses control over his quirk if it wasn't for the warning glares he got sent by both Chiyo and Shoyuda. The healer is very patient with Izuku and answers all his questions as she has him do various tests. She lets him listen to the stethoscope on her heart and his, and warms it up on the bed first to prevent the metal from being too cold. He gets to tap Shuda's knee first and watch it kick up and giggles and gasps when it is done to his legs, and they do the same. All three adults compliment Izuku on how smart he is as he reads the letters on the paper for the eye exam, and are all impressed by how well he hears, even with headphones on to partially drown out sound. In the end, the results aren't nearly as bad as any of them feared, but it was still enough to guarantee that Izuku's mother and father would have an extremely hard time ever regaining custody of Izuku again. With Nizu's help, it will hopefully be entirely impossible, but the fear of losing the child they had so quickly grown to love was still there. They could already tell from the moment Izuku was found that he is malnourished, and officially he is the average weight of a 2-year-old when he is closer to being 4 years old, and his height is a bit stunted as well, but that can possibly be attributed to his quirk. None of them are quirk experts despite having quirk advisor license, as they help teens better develop their quirks after they have had years to grow and learn the advantages and disadvantages through the help of quirk counselors. The two heads of the Yamazawa household will have to schedule an appointment for their ward with a child court doctor to find out the specifics, but for now, Izuku is doing okay. After Chiyo recommends several foods specific to helping children gain weight at a healthy pace, she sends them on their way and they head towards the teacher's lounge. By now, school will start in half an hour, and Hitoshi should be waiting for them with some of the other teachers, but will need to head over to 1A soon. As they reach the closed door, Shoyuta sighs and looks over to Hisashi. Ready? Ready. Hisashi responds with a grin, ready to reveal the child he hopes will soon legally become a part of his wonderful family to his friends and co-workers. He knows he will be expected to do most of the talking and doesn't move to open the door until Shoyuta warns Izuku to cover his ears as their friends can be a bit loud, but not as loud as Zashi. Hisashi slides the door open and announces their presence with a loud, "Hello," and Kuro's, better known as 13, and Amiri's squeal in excitement at the sight of the little one in Shuta's arms. Izuku leans in to whisper something into Shuta's ear, and the man covers the kid's ears by pressing one into his chest and placing a hand over the other ear after Izuku takes his little hands off. With his ears covered again, he waves at the heroes and gives a grin showing off his baby canines. Ken smiles back showing off canines on the bottom row of his mouth, and Izuku gently pushes his savior's hand off his ear to point to his fangs and tell the man that him and Vlad king match. The other teachers are not around, having already left to prepare for any early students, and Vlad is quite happy to steal all the attention away from his colleagues. "Haha, Eraser, your kid likes me better," he proclaims, but wilts when Izuku tells him not to be so mean. The man grumbles and mumbles about going to train his kids to beat erasers this year, as they will be superior, and Izuku laughs at Shuta's eye roll. Hisashi leaves too with a kiss to Shoyuta and Hitoshi and tears up happily when Izuku asks for one too. Namiri and Kuro say goodbye and tell Izuku how cute he is, and Namiri teases Shoyuta to try and not get too jealous, as they aren't going to steal his kid, at least not too often. She laughs as he grumpily flashes red eyes at her, and Hitoshi tells her it's a bit too late, as the paperwork for adoption is already being filled out, and hands it to his father as he walks out the door. Soon it is just Izuku and Shoyuta left, and the man is more than happy to grab a quick nap before having to teach his gremlins. With Izuku snuggled up in his scarf, the two grab a quick little nap and are woken up by the principal himself. Am I a bear, a mouse, or a dog? Most importantly, I am the principal. I wanted to meet you personally to say welcome to UA Izuku. Now Shoyuta, you really must hurry. You're going to be late for your class. And just as quickly as he arrived, the chimera disappears. Shoyuta stands up to head to class as his boss would only let him get away with sleeping through the day so many times, but pauses when he notices Izuku fiddling with his scarf and seeming nervous. "What's wrong, kid?" he asks, and Izuku looks up at his with his big green eyes. He shrugs and begins to fiddle again, managing to find his silver chain necklace under the scarf that holds his wedding ring that matches his husband's. "Why don't you wear your ring?" Izuku asks, holding the black zirconium up. "Because we don't want bad guys to find out me and Zashi are married and use it to hurt us. That's also why we don't tell anyone about Toshi being our son, but you're changing the subject. Are you nervous to meet the class? They are loud idiots, but nice like Zashi." "Oh," Izuku says quietly before taking a deep breath and nodding, trying to look brave as he scrunched his nose and squint his eyes. The walk to Class 1A's room takes only a minute or two, but Izuku grows nervous again and hides his face in his hero scarf. Switching from his dad voice to teacher voice, Eraserhead slides the door open and tells the brats to shut up as they have a visitor today. "But Sensei," Ida tries to speak up, more than likely to complain about the sudden scheduling change, but is interrupted by his teacher's glare. "Ida, I am aware this is not part of our usual schedule. Sit down. Izuku will be staying with us today, and you will not bother him unless he comes up to you first, understood?" The man glares at his class, daring them to say anything against it, and slowly pulls Izuku out of his scarf and onto his hip. Gasps can be heard throughout the class from both the girls and some of the guys. Mina and Hagakure are the loudest as they try and fail to squeal quietly. Mineta grumbles about a baby getting all the girls, but Tsu and Jiro react as he does so by slapping him with their tongue and zapping him with their ear jack respectively. Izuku, do you want to sit at my desk and color, or stay on my hip? Shoyuta whispers to the boy, and Izuku continues to hide his face from the others and just taps Shuta's hip. For homeroom, he goes over the training exercises they covered at the USJ the day before, and the damages their mistakes can cause to the victims and themselves. Izuku stays still and awake for the entire hour, and Shoyuta is surprised to see him not trying to wiggle around to get out any energy. Cats do tend to sleep 16 hours a day, so that could explain it, but he didn't know for sure. With a few minutes until Hisashi arrives to teach English, he asks Izuku if he wants to talk to the class, and receives a nod in response. All right, class. Izuku is okay with talking to you all before Mike arrives, but if you're too loud, he will be leaving the room and staying with someone else. Aizawa-sensei says, warning his students not to be stupid, and calls on Momo to ask the first question. She kindly offers to make Izuku some crayons and markers if he would like to draw, and Izuku sends her a smile and nods happily. Soon Izuku is sitting on Shuta's desk with crayons, markers, a notebook, and a present Mike coloring book. Shoyuta tenses and prepares to use his quirk, soon knowing that Hisashi will squeal at the sight of it and risk damaging all their eardrums and the room's windows. Mina asks if she can pet Izuku's ears, and he covers his ears and says no. All the girls look visibly disappointed at this, but understand and don't push the matter with their sensei glaring at them. Kirishima calls Izuku little dude and just asks for a fist bump, which he receives after explaining to the toddler what it was. Hisashi makes his presence known with a yeah, as he slides the room open and is shut up quickly by his secret husband's scarf. In response, the man tries to pout, but lets out a muffled squeal at the sight of Izuku using a coloring book about him. Izuku continues to color throughout all of English, math, and art. He colors in the coloring book for a bit before switching to his new notebook and gives each hero a doodle of them with quirk analysis. By lunchtime, he has done doodles for all of 1A, but no quirk analysis for them just yet. They have hero training after lunch, and he has permission from Zawa and Zashi to watch. Lunch Rush gives him miso soup with extra fish for lunch, and Izuku gets to eat in the teacher's lounge with Zawa and Zashi. Namuri, Zashi, and Ectoplasm thank him for his drawings, and Izuku promises Zawa that his drawing was next. He is introduced to the other teachers that hadn't been in the lounge that morning and warms up to them all as he has seen videos of them fighting before and knows he can trust them. Before heading back to class, Shoyuta tells Izuku that Niza bought him a few books if he wants to try and read them later, and Izuku happily agrees. They bring the books with them, and seeing as All Might was running late once more, Aizawa tells his class to just stay seated while they wait. Can I read to them? Izuku whispers after tugging on Shuta's scarf to grab his attention. All right, brats. Izuku is going to read for us while we wait, so shut up and sit down. He commands, as some of the teens had gotten out of their seats to talk with one another. Sitting crisscross applesauce on top of the hero's desk, Izuku hides behind the book he chose to read to the class, as he is still feeling a little shy. It was a simple children's book about a moose getting a muffin, but was meant for children to read around age 6 or 7. The entire class is very respectful as they listen quietly and are proud of Izuku as he sounds out a couple of the bigger words and reads the entire book without needing help. His fangs seem to make it harder for him to pronounce like words with the th sound coming out a D instead and not being able to say his H's or L's at all. As the class claps for Izuku doing a wonderful job, he puts the book down and fiddles with his tail as he isn't used to all this attention. His ears flick up as a loud sound sounds in the hallway, and he covers his ears as he looks to the doorway for the noise to arrive. I am here, All Might announces as he flings the door open and stands proudly with his chest puffed out. Izuku giggles and copies the man's pose and takes the class to ground beta with Izuku piggybacking on his shoulders. All Might was threatened heavily by Shoyuta earlier that morning and Nizu before class, which was why he had arrived late. With Namuri's help, playing as a hostage against villain bots, the students went in teams of 4 to save her. The rest of the class and Izuku watch from the monitor room, and Izuku, happily rambles about all their cool quirks. The entire class is impressed by Izuku's comments and watches he takes notes in his notebook for them. He has to ask help with remembering some bigger words by explaining with simpler words he already knew how to spell and ask questions about quirk usage. Todoroki and Bakugo's quirks are the coolest in his opinion, but is disappointed when Todoroki doesn't know how to make any shapes like snowflakes or flowers out of his ice. When training was over, everyone quickly changes out of their gym uniforms, and Hitoshi smirks smugly at his classmates as he gets to hold Izuku's hand on the walk back to class. The rest of the day is a study block, and as Izuku now sees Class 1A as heroes, he knows they can be trusted too and no longer feels the need to be shy and hide. He showed off his counting skills by counting all his fingers and easily jumps to his toes as he still refuses to wear any shoes and is able to keep going, so he counts all of Hitoshi and Denki's fingers too. After reaching 40, he gets tired of counting little numbers and jumps to tens until he reaches 100 and skips to hundreds until getting up to 1,000. Izuku knows his 2 and 3 times tables and asks Mina to start asking hard questions when she writes down simple adding and subtracting problems for him to do. Sue quizzes him on how he learned all these things at so young, as none of her younger siblings learned as fast as he has. Izuku happily rambles about all the cool books his mama would give him to keep him quiet, as she was always busy with work and she needed him to be good. The class becomes silent at this, as Izuku has no idea that he just admitted to his mother's neglect and hums as he plays with his big brother's fingers. The mood in the class is slightly somber after Izuku's comment, but they all try their best to not let it show and let him tell them all about his favorite heroes, Eraserhead and Present Mike. Aizawa-sensei's tiny blush gave away the fact that he was not actually sleeping like he said he was and has been listening in. Izuku pulls out his notebook to show the class his drawing and analysis of Dadzawa and carefully tears out the page. He tiptoes over to the man cocooned in his sleeping bag and places it gently beside him. Izuku tiptoes back to Hitoshi and grabs his notebook off the desk before tearing out quite a few more pages. He hands one to each student with analysis he did for them, including Mineta, except instead of a drawing of the pervert, it was just a grapevine. Class comes to an end shortly after, with the bell letting out a soft chime, and everyone says goodbye to Izuku. Hitoshi stays behind as he doesn't have a train to catch in order to get home. Lifting Izuku up onto his hip, Hitoshi walks the two of them into the teacher's lounge to chill in while his dad and Papa work on some paperwork before they can head home. Izuku finally conks out after staying awake for so long. Hitoshi quietly chuckles as he hears Nizu offering to teach Izuku and his dad warning the rat that he doesn't want both kid corrupted. Sitting down on a couch, he leans his head back and happily joins Izuku in the dream realm, as for once his insomnia doesn't hate him. "I am here," All Might exclaims his overly used phrase as he once again appears to the class by the doorway. By the door. All Might's yelling covers up his colleague's groan of annoyance, as he already hates that he is allowing this buffoon's half-baked plan to use his tiny son's assistance without him nearby. It has been nearly a week since Izuku has been found, and Nizu finally got him to allow the number 1 hero to go through with his training exercise of having Izuku as bait. All Might, Nizu, Hizashi, and Namiri had to work overtime to convince Shoyuta that Izuku will be safe, and it was only agreed to once Nizu had a room built specifically for Izuku to be held in safely, in case anything goes wrong. The only reason why Shoyuta isn't going along to supervise is because the rat is forcing him to catch up on paperwork and promise to watch from his cameras, as he is protective of Izuku too. "Don't you worry, Aizawa. Izuku will be safe, because I will be there." This time Shuta's groan is not missed, as he bangs his head on his desk at the same time. Ida's warning not to damage his head gets ignored by their sensei, and All Might laughs again and shouts, "Onward, students. Our rescuing training awaits." With Izuku and his yellow backpack held carefully in his arms as he runs ahead to prepare, the students grab their costumes and rush to change for their hero training of the day. While running, All Might fails to notice his speed, causing the toddler's earplugs to fly out his ears. He is also somehow still completely unaware of the fact that his booming voice can be hurtful to those with sensitive hearing after being a hero for years. All Might carefully sits Izuku down and pulls out his notebook and colors to keep him happy before rushing around one last time to make sure everything is in place and remember where he put his note cards for class. The students trickle out one by one in their costumes, and he goes back over to Izuku. "Okay, young Izuku. Clean up as it's time to go." All Might says at his typical booming volume and grows worried when Izuku tears up. Crouching down beside him, All Might asks him what is wrong, resulting in more tears, and Izuku covering his ears instead of cleaning up. As the hero is about to scold the child for not listening, Yaoyorozu, being the responsible mom of the group, is quick to speak up to prevent the situation from escalating further. "All Might, could you try to not yell? I understand you want us all to hear you, but Izuku has very sensitive ears." Jiro does as well. Jiro sends Momo a small smile and thanks as their class president mentions this. "I think I speak for all of the class when I say we can all hear you just fine, even when you don't yell." All Might looks around sheepishly as the whole class nods in agreement, and Izuku flashes her a teary-eyed smile. He timidly goes to her and gives her a quick hug around her legs. Momo smiles and bends down to create him a black teddy bear designed to look like Eraserhead and gently places present Mike-style earbuds in his ears. "Is that better?" she asks, and with a squeeze to his new favorite toy, Izuku gives her a shy thumbs up. "Okay, young Jiro, is this volume better for you?" All Might asks, only slightly quieter than before. She nods her head, happy he is at least attempting to be quieter for her and Izuku's sake. "Huh, onward my young heroes, class has just begun." All Might happily exclaims as he begins to explain their hero exercise for the day. Today he splits the class into 4 groups of 5 instead of 4 and leads Izuku into his small isolated room with a small tablet connected to the cameras. "Now class, Izuku today is helping us play out another type of hostage situation. To prevent any Debra from our fight hurting little Izuku, he shall remain in his room. He is alone, but safe, so nothing can hurt him. 5 at a time, you all will come into this building and try to fight your way up to the top against me. I will only use 10% of my power, but you have to work together to get past me. You will have 15 minutes and must get past me or defeat me. Only then can you save Izuku. Unlike with Midnight, you can't expect the hostage to be able to help you much with their escape, and you may need to calm him down as well. Unlike last week when they were given the option to choose their group, Aizawa-sensei has split them up this time, and the list is shown on the hologram All Might's phone provides for them. Fumikage Tokoyami, Minoru Mineta, Kyokujiro, Ejiro Kurishima, and 2 Azui are going first. The second group is Denki Kaminari, Momo Yaizu, Tenya Ida, Mizo Shoji, and Toru Hagakure. Going third is Mashinro Ojuro, Achiko Uraraka, Mina Ishido, Yuga Aoyama, and Shoto Todoroki. The final group consists of Bakugo Katsuki, Koji Koda, Rokido Sato, Hantashiro, and Yamazawa Hitoshi. They are all evenly divided into groups that consist of heavy hitters, stealth-oriented fighters, reconnaissance, and speedsters. The first fight goes well. They split into 2 smaller groups with Mineta, Jiro, and 2 slipping past All Might, while Tokoyami and Kirishima stay behind to distract and fight the hero playing villain long enough to reach Izuku. The whole class already knows they have to reach the top floor to get to Izuku, so Mineta uses his quirk to climb to the top and open a window for to carry up herself and Jiro. When the sounds of fighting reach Jiro's ears, she quickly uses her quirk to locate Izuku and let him out with a key card that all 5 of the group had been given to unlock the door from the outside, which if Nizu had not intervened when previewing the lesson plan, the cards would not have been provided. Unfortunately, as the second fight comes around, things do not go nearly as well. Kaminari uses his quirk in an attempt to electrocute All Might, while Momo has the rest of the team under a RBB blanket to prevent them from getting hurt. Luck seems to be against them, as the plan works too well and fries all the electricity in the entire building. This includes the electronic lock on the door Izuku has been placed behind. With Denki stuck in Wii mode and All Might unable to see in the dark, Momo quickly produces a flashlight, and Ilda runs from one classmate to another and rushes them to the top floor. Shoji can hear All Might scrambling around trying to find them and get the power back online, but is quickly distracted when he hears Izuku's cries for help. Weakening herself even further and pushing her quirk to the limit for the day, Momo makes a generator in an attempt to get Izuku's door working again for them to help get him out. Shoji leads them to Izuku's door, and soon they can all hear his cries, and Toru tries her hardest to calm him down. With both Momo and Denki too weak to be of much help, Ida has them sit down and thinks about what his brother would do in a situation like this. Not wanting to break down the door out of fear it could fall on Izuku, and being unsuccessful on using the generator to hotwire the door open, as only Denki knows how to hotwire anything. Ida runs faster than ever before and runs to where the rest of his classmates are observing through cameras in the distance. Officially burnt out with stalling engines, Ida bursts through the doors as his classmates discuss worriedly what caused the cameras to go dark. Ida faintly hears Tokoimi mumbles, "Revelry in the darkness," to himself as he practically flops to the floor in exhaustion and breathlessly begins his explanation. He is forced to repeat himself a few times as his class shouts out questions at certain parts, but finally makes them fully aware of the situation. Hitoshi pulls out his phone the moment Ida finishes and calls his father for help. Luckily, the entire class had heard Aizawa mention he was giving Hitoshi his number for if Izuku freaks out, so their relationship remained a secret to everyone but Todoroki. Now Todoroki only knew to an extent because he keeps insisting Hitoshi is Aizawa's secret love child due to the floating hair and matching eye bags, but that's a completely different topic. It isn't that the Yamazawa family don't want anyone to know the truth. It is more the fear that Hitoshi could be accused of using his parents to gain a spot in the hero course despite him earning it all on his own, or the truth could get leaked out and he would be in danger of villains targeting him. Despite Denki shorting out all the electricity in the area, the cell towers weren't affected and Hitoshi's call went through. He could feel his dad's worry and growing anger through the phone the moment it was answered. "Ito, what's wrong? What happened? All Might was supposed to call me if something goes wrong." This was only All Might's second time being allowed to teach them unsupervised, as last time he did so. But Kugo had managed to destroy a building's entire floor and damage the entire structure. He had left Kirishima with slight first-degree burns, which would have been much worse had he not hardened his skin in time. Hitoshi had heard plenty of grumblings about the number one hero acting like a monkey in a suit, and knew he would hear plenty more after this, and would probably join in once Izuku is okay. This will probably also the last time for a long while that All Might will be allowed near students by himself too. Denki used his quirk to knock out All Might, but instead it knocked out all the power, and the backup generators must have been shot too, because they still haven't turned on. Cameras are out, so I don't know what's happening with Izuku either. He rushes out as he fears for his little brother and everything but BLD and official documentation. In both hero and dad mode, Aizawa asks short-worded questions to get answers as quickly as possible. Hitoshi listens over the phone as his dad grabs Aunt Namuri and Power Loader for help and angrily grumps out answers to their questions about an incompetent All Might, a power outage, and Izuku being trapped. As all of this went on, Nizu watches from his cameras just like he had promised, and his tail wags as his fur puffs up in anger. He had trusted Tashinori to take care of the little cub, and while he knew logically it wasn't entirely the man's fault, his animal instincts roared over the man, causing the cub to be so scared and alone. If Shoyuta and Hizashi weren't already in the process of adopting the child, he would have snatched up the little one as his own cub. His paws type away furiously as he does his best to inform Power Loader and Recovery Girl of the situation without causing them to panic and send some of the medical robots Jim Gamma's way. He has a strong feeling that All Might will not be able to walk away from this situation unharmed once everyone learns of what happened. Not willing to wait for the situation to be resolved and having no shoulders to ride on, he hops into his tiny car and begins a long drive down to the gym. After all, while he isn't fast enough to hurt the man himself, his animalistic side still craves revenge, and he wouldn't mind having a front row seat to the event. As everyone rushes to get Izuku and the others help, The toddler had only freaked out more as he listened to the heroes in training trying to force the door open. Nearly the entire class has made their way up to the top floor to try and help with a few others, including Tokoyami volunteering to wait for help to arrive and explain the situation. At this point, Izuku is full-on sobbing, with a panicking All Might failing miserably to calm him down. The hero is yelling much louder than necessary for Izuku to hear him through the door, and not only scaring Izuku more, but hurting his ears too. But Kogo yells at the man for being a loud BSDRD and forgetting the brat has sensitive hearing before getting slapped by Tsu for being loud too, and she kicks both of them out of the room. Tsu does her best to comfort Izuku along with the rest of the girls before Hitoshi attempts to use his quirk as a last resort, but Izuku is too stuck in his panic to even whimper out an answer for his big brother to force him to sleep. To put it simply, Shoyuta is prepared to murder Japan's #1 hero and become a top-tier villain when he hears of the state his kid is in. His heart breaks at the sound of Izuku whimpering and begging for his Zawa, Zashi, and Toshi. Midnight and Power Loader seems just as upset as Aizawa and rushes to get everyone away from the door so they can work. Midnight uses her quirk on Izuku to help the poor thing sleep, and Power Loader began to rewire the door to glitch it open. With the generator Momo had provided, he quickly connects some wires together to use for power, and the doors silently slide open to reveal a sleeping Izuku, curled up with his tail in hand and dried tear stains on his cheeks. Izuku is safely in his father's arms within seconds and sleeps off Midnight's fog for a good hour before crying to his daddy about how scared he was. He begs to never be locked in a scary room again and promises to be good with his chubby fingers and claws clinging onto his scarf for dear life. Nizu is informed of the entirety of the incident, and All Might is harshly scolded for putting Izuku at such risk. Izuku refuses to leave Shuta's side for the rest of the day, and because of this, Hizashi got to All Might before he could. And as Aizawa watches his husband scream at All Might louder than ever, he has never been more proud. By the time the entire fiasco with All Might was settled, the #1 hero had been scolded, screamed at, and lectured by various co-workers and students for hours. He had massively failed to keep Izuku safe like he had promised, and everyone made sure he was fully aware of that fact. Realistically, it was not entirely the man's fault, as Denki had been the one to fry the systems, but he lacks the years of experience the #1 hero should have. Denki also apologizes to Izuku for his mistakes multiple times on his hands and knees, while All Might has failed to do so. The #1 hero majorly failed to be there for the child, as he was the cause of more fear instead of reassurance. A big part of being a good hero is being a strong rock for scared citizens to lean on and depend on, and All Might did a miserable job doing so with Izuku. Where he should have let go of his pride and admit to needing backup, his actions escalated the situation. An important thing for heroes to understand is that calling others for help isn't a weakness, a lesson that Yagi has clearly never learned or acknowledged. With little to no knowledge on the workings of electricity, he should have immediately called Power Loader or Nizu. As the student's instructor, All Might should have planned for this and did not. Nizu knew the man was bad with electronics, so he had taken the extra step himself with providing the ground with backup generators, but the fried lines prevented them from working. If the man had been more careful in his planning like he had promised Nizu and Aizawa, and admitted defeat instead of being too prideful to state that he needs assistance, this never would have happened. So before, during, and even after All Might was being torn into, Shoyuta comforts his trembling toddler as Izuku frantically makes little biscuits to attempt to calm down. Izuku refuses to leave his hero's arms or scar for the rest of the day. The tiny tyke had lost his spark and refuses to talk to anyone, no matter what. Little shivers occasionally shake through his entire body whenever Izuku feels his Zawa moving. He stutters out many pleas to not be let go or left alone, breaking the hearts of anyone who hears him. Shoyuta is always quick to promise him everything is all right and cradle the boy in his arms to calm him down. This goes on throughout the rest of the day and causes Shuta's urge to beat a man in his monkey suit to grow. The car ride home is difficult as Izuku grows more tense as he can smell the worry coming off of all three of his favorite people. Shuta's patrol was different tonight compared to most due to the time it starts. Since adopting Hitoshi, he had done his best to push his patrols to start later in the night to enjoy dinner and bedtime routines with his family. Tonight, however, would begin shortly after dinner, as he has to cover a fellow underground hero's shift as they recover from a recent stabbing incident. He is also way too stubborn to not go on patrol, even when injured due to the risk of people getting hurt, because he wasn't there. Hisashi has caught his husband attempting to hide injuries on multiple occasions for that very reason, and is why he has recovered girl on speed dial. The man has gotten slightly better at caring for himself, but it's almost entirely for the sake of his family. So, for Izuku's sake, Aizawa Shoyuta is mentally scrambling to come up with a way to help the kid with his fears. As the four enter their home, Tigger is right at the door and happily greets them with a loud meow. This seems to calm Izuku down as he giggles and says, "Silly Tigger, don't be mean to lady." Hitoshi looks at his parents and raises an eyebrow, silently questioning what just happened. "Do you want down to play with Tigger before dinner, kiddo?" Hisashi asks Izuku. Izuku looks between Tigger and Zawa a few times, growing frustrated as he can't decide what he wants to do. Shoyuta gets down on his knees to put Izuku down, and the toddler tears up and whimpers out no. "Let's make a deal," Shoyuta offers as he pulls one end of his scarf out to hand to Izuku. "You go play with Tigger and hold on to the scarf, so if you need me, just tug at it and I will come pick you up again." With a tiny sniffle, Izuku nods his head sadly and plops on the floor as Tigger purrs and brushes his side along Izuku's back. With Tigger distracting Izuku, the little boy calms down greatly and plays with the scarf still held tightly in a fist. He has several very interesting conversations with Tigger, and the Yamazawa family can't help but wonder if the boy actually understands what their crazy cat is saying. Lady joins them at some point and swats at Tigger as she gives Izuku a bath. He lays their content in her paws and purrs as she cleans behind his ears and licks around his head. Surprisingly, Stalker doesn't grow jealous at all the attention Izuku is getting and lays down next to the boy. She purrs loudly as he runs his little fingers through her gray coat of fur. Bandit stays hidden and watches from inside the cat tree as this all takes place. Dinner is prepared quickly, and all the cats turn their attention to Hisashi as he pours kibble into all their bowls. Shoyuta scoops up Izuku, who is still purring in content, and walks them both over to the dinner table, which was set by Hitoshi. They enjoy fish katsudon, which have been made in mind specially for Izuku, and the toddler happily swings his feet under the table as he gobbles it all up. He happily exclaims that he has found his new favorite food, as pork katsudon was his favorite before. Izuku starts to say that his mommy used to make the best katsudon, but pauses and grows quiet. His little ears droop down in sadness as he places his chopsticks down on his napkin. Dadzawa is quick to jump to the rescue with a big hug, and wiped away a few fallen tears. The three can't help but worry as Izuku's comments suggest that his mother hasn't cooked for him in a while. No cries about missing his mom are provided either, and their hearts hurt for the little kitten. Hisashi and Shoyuta shoot worried looks at each other over Izuku's head as he clings to Shoyuta. It's nearly time for the man to leave for patrol, but neither of them want to worsen their new kid's mental state. Although Izuku loves Hisashi, Shoyuta is the one that saved him and who he goes to for comfort first. Up until now, Izuku would be asleep in what used to be their spare bedroom, so slipping away for patrol hadn't been an issue. With Izuku currently being wide awake, leaving for work will not be nearly as easy. The two men silently communicate with head tilts and raised eyebrows as they get ready for a possible meltdown as Hitoshi does the dishes to give them some privacy. The raven-haired man sits down on the couch with Izuku held in his arms and spins him around to talk face-to-face. "Kid, you know how I found and helped you earlier this week?" Izuku looks up at his Zawa with wide green eyes and gives a little nod. "As a hero, it's my job to help people, right?" Izuku responds with a quiet yeah. "Most nights I have to go help people, and tonight I have to leave a lot earlier than usual." The toddler's shin starts to wobble. Zawa leaving. Shoyuta makes a mental note to talk to Ryo at the very obvious abandonment issues the kids has. I am leaving, but I promise I'm coming back. After all, I can't trust this cockatoo over there not to make you just as loud as he is. Shoyuta jokes and gets a snot-filled giggle from Izuku. Hizashi crouches down next to Shoyuta with a tissue for Izuku to use and wipes away his tears. Zawa is going to come back, little listener, just like he does every night. He will be back when you wake up in the morning, and it will be like he never left at all. Hizashi says to cheer the boy up. But I don't want him to go, the little boy whispers out, still a bit upset, and sinks his claws in Eraserhead's signature scarf. Let's make a deal. Shoyuta bargains. I give you my scarf to keep safe, so you know I absolutely have to come home to get it. I will use an extra one I have, but this one here is my favorite. The underground hero takes his scarf off his neck and places it around Izuku's neck, and the fabric pools into his lap. Shoyuta gives Izuku a gentle squeeze before depositing him into his husband's lap and tells Hitoshi bye before heading out. He forced himself to block out the sounds of Izuku's cries, as he knows Zashi will take good care of him. His shift drags on slowly, with him beating up the few thugs he does find a bit harsher than usual. He ignores the exasperated looks sent his way by Detective Tsukachi, as the man is well aware of the fact that he just wants to go home. Time drudges by as the man insists on the hero filling out the paperwork about his captures to prevent any more possible hospital trips tonight. The coffee at the precinct tastes the usual amount of crappy, but it keeps him busy. Tsukachi taps him on the shoulder to let him know his shift is over with a teasing nod and wink goodbye as he practically jumps from his seat. The man didn't dare tease him out loud, as should his family is a well-kept secret, so he stuck to silent yes. The hero hops quickly from roof to roof as he worries about Izuku. He had kept his phone off to keep himself from constantly checking for messages from Hizashi and has no idea how Izuku did for the night. The man allows himself to slow down once he reaches the block his home is in and quietly slides his key into the door's lock. He enters the house with silent footsteps as he sheds his work boots at the door. Knowing that Hizashi will tell him how everything went in the morning, he keeps his phone off and makes his way to Izuku's room. The toddler had refused to let them decorate it for him, so it was missing a plaque with his name like Hitoshi, but was fully furnished. Opening the door, he can see a few toys they had bought Izuku scattered around the door and the little boy sleeping soundly in his bed. Squeezed up against the wall is his wonderful husband with a protective arm wrapped around the kid. All over both of them is his gray scarf. Izuku grips it tightly, even in his sleep, and has it greatly tangled up around his entire body. The man quietly huffs in amusement as it reminds him of himself when he was still learning his way around the weapon, and closes the door with a click. The sports festival is right around the corner, and everyone is putting in extra time to train, even Izuku. Eraserhead's scarf has become his new favorite thing, and he refuses to part with it. Naturally, this means he needs to learn how to use it to be able to properly copy his hero, and Hitoshi is happy to help. As an aspiring underground hero and the secret son of Aizawa-sensei, he has had lots of practice growing up using the scarf. Getting tangled up in the scarf and getting stuck dangling upside down like a spider is all part of the learning process. He is more than happy to teach his little brother the art of using the scarf and take him on as a mini apprentice. Anytime you see Hitoshi in the gym or at one of the training grounds with his scarf, Izuku is never too far behind. He becomes a bit of a mascot to Class 1A as he cheers them all on and waves to anyone else he sees in the hallways too. His scarf is giant on him and often has some of it dragging behind him. When he isn't with Hitoshi, he is with his Zawa or Zashi. Everyone in the school knows by now that the boy was rescued by Aizawa-sensei, thanks to some of the girls' love to gossip, including Midnight. It has also become well known that All Might is not trusted by the toddler and to do everything in their power to keep him away from Izuku. The formerly beloved number 1 hero has made a few attempts to talk to Izuku to apologize and majorly failed. He is no longer allowed to teach the teens on his own and is being forced to attend hour-long sessions of HR training with Nizu to properly learn how to treat people of all ages, quirks, and personalities. His plans are foiled at the teacher's lounge, as well as his loud footsteps alert everyone to his arrival, and he gets greeted at the door by 2 angry, glowing red eyes. Even Hound Dog is liked by Izuku more than he is, and cats are commonly known for not getting along well with dogs. He knows some cats love dogs, but it would have been nice for the hero to know he isn't the only one the little one actively avoids. Yagi even tried to offer to watch Izuku while Shoyuta and Hisashi commentate, but was denied before he could even finish his sentence. Ida Tensei, also known as Ingenium, ends up being the one to watch Izuku as a favor for his old classmates and good friends. He swaps shifts with a fellow hero, Native, who patrols in the same area as him. Getting to watch his little brother participate in the festival live is merely a plus. A meetup during dinner is scheduled the night before the festival, and Tensei offers to bring takeout for dinner. A good way to gain both a cat and a kid's trust is by providing food, and the meetup goes well. Izuku loves the salmon sushi Tensei brings, and it helps that Zawa, Zashi, and Toshi act comfortable around the man too. His new family and the cats approve, so Izuku approves of Tensei too. When morning comes around and Tensei is back at the house, Izuku makes sure to tell the hero of his approval. He laughs when told he is better liked than his younger brother because he is quieter and promises to keep it a secret. Everyone says goodbye and gives Izuku a hug before walking out the door as he wishes them all luck. With a couple hours to spare before the festival begins, the two play a few rounds of Go Fish with a deck of hero cards while the cats lounge around. The TV plays quietly in the background with a random movie on as a clock countdown for when the sports festival will begin is shown in the corner of the screen. A loud alarm clock like noise goes off as the clock ends and the cards go away as Present Mick's voice fills the room as he announces that the festival is about to begin. Put your hands up and cheer everybody because here comes our first year students. Papa Zashi shouts as he starts with Class 1A and ends with 1H as 1I through 1K are business students and not participating. Izuku is too scared to call Zashi Papa to his face, but his papa is doing awesome with Dadzawa looking like a silly grump. The business students sounded pretty boring to Izuku, so he simply focuses on looking for Toshi in the crowd of first years. He watches as Blasty Kakin tells everyone he's going to win, and Annie Nim says the first challenge is an obstacle race. She even snaps her super cool WHB as she says, "So," and winks at the camera. Izuku tries to wink back, and he can only do it with both eyes at once, so it must count as a double wink. From his seat on the couch, Izuku tries not to quiver and wiggle too much in his excitement, as Mama would always scold him for not sitting still. He gasps in excitement when cold Shoto freezes everything and kicks his feet as he cheers at the sight of his Toshi. Lady looks at the TV unimpressed and give him a few loving licks before telling him to be good for the engine man and leaving the room. Tensei points out his brother to Izuku and happily states that both their brothers are doing great. This made the engine man seem alright in Izuku's book as the hero liked Toshi, unlike some meanies he had heard gossiping in the UA hallways about his villain quirk. He had sicked both Dadzawa and Nizu on them with an innocent question about why his Toshi was a bad guy according to those students. Izuku tugs at his ear to force himself to focus like Mama would have and sees that Toshi and the younger Ida are running around some scary-looking robots. Tigger bats at his hand and scolds him for pulling at his ear. The orange cat crawls all over him and lays his back, making Izuku laugh while Papa Zashi cheers on the students. And now some of the students are reaching the second barrier of this course, the fall. Blasty and Shoto were moving so fast. Even Ida was still behind them doing speedy zigzags around the bots. Manly Kiri and a metal guy that looks just like Manly Kiri are screaming as they bust out from inside a giant robot, while Mina dances along on her acid. Izuku can't find Toshi at the moment, but everyone looks so cool. It'd get a bit too loud, and Izuku may or may not have hidden under a blanket and a scarf for a tiny bit, but he is brave and doesn't stay under for too long. Tensei comes to his rescue by turning the volume down on the TV and tells Izuku to let him know if it gets to be too loud again. He tells the man, "Thank you, as good boys use their manners." With his scarf wrapped around him, he peeks over the gray fabric and watches as Kakin flies over a field with Shoto sliding across it on his ice. He can't help but wonder if Shoto used to ice skate as a kid to train his quirk. A pink poof of smoke spears as a girl with ivy for hair steps onto the field, making Izuku jump. The scarf hides him away again as Papa Zashi's voice fills the room. Oh, our students have reached the third and final obstacle of the race, the minefield. Here are harmless but loud and pink explosions. It will send you back a foot or two, so watch where you step. Hearing this, Izuku tries to be brave again and watch, but the explosion looks scary and are loud, so he hides away. Engine Man and Dadzua's scarf will keep him safe, so he waits for the TV to stop being so loud. Tensei must have seen this, because while he cheers on the students, he turns down the volume first. Tigger joins Izuku in his giant bundle of scarf, and they playfully swat at each other while they wait for the course to end. He faintly hears Papa Zashi announcing students' names and what place they are in, and he quietly cheers for his friends, especially his brother Toshi. Eventually, Tensei tells Izuku it is safe to come out, and together they watch Annie Nim spin a wheel. She flicks her WHP again, and 64 students get to play a cavalry battle. It sounds pretty silly as one student rides piggyback on 3 others and run around for a few minutes. He looks around the screen and finds Toshi with bubbly Chaco, silly Yami, and Pinker with goggles. Yami and Shadow are sitting on top with Toshi in the front and Chaco and Pinky in the back. Kakin and his loud and goofy friend group are together with 1,000,000 points. Kakin is up top looking silly as he yells at them, as Izuku knows he is secretly nice. Shoto has Ito with him along with Super Nice Momo and Sparky Denki. Izuku makes sure to point them out to Tensei, who says, "Thanks, little guy." He doesn't seem to mean it in a mean way, but Izuku isn't really that little. What is it with big people always calling him little? They don't call the weird grape guy in Dadzua's class little, and Izuku is almost taller than him. Izuku pouts for a bit in his scarf as the rest of the students form their groups. Just as he suspected, the cavalry battle is super fun to watch as everyone looks kind of silly. Most of them chase Kakin for all his points, but his group does good fighting back. Usually fighting is bad, but it is part of the game, so it's okay for today. Shoto makes some super cool and probably super cold ice walls to trap Kakin's group. After that, the other groups go after everyone, but Kakin and Shoto, as the ice keeps them all away. Toshi's group does awesome, as at some points they're flying around with shadow-grabbing headbands when people are busy fighting others. With the TV volume down, Izuku's ears don't hurt at all, and he can't help but overhear his hero friend getting a call. The man tells him to stay on the couch as he walks away, but Izuku has really good hearing. Tensei answers the phone in the kitchen and asks why he's being called as him, and native switch shifts. The voice on the other end is too quiet for Izuku to hear, but he doesn't miss the gasp of breath Engine Man makes. He sounds worried and maybe even scared, which is weird because heroes don't get scared. The hero starts talking faster and asking for details, and Izuku focuses back on the TV as he knows eavesdropping is bad. He doesn't want a bad, so he turns up a volume on the TV to block out the conversation. When the man returns to the couch, the second event is over and he slumps down in his seat. His sense shows how he is clearly upset, but trying to hide it, so Izuku looks up at him and pats his leg in comfort. Tensei smiles and lets out a tired-sounding laugh. "Thanks, bud," and asks him if he is hungry for lunch. Izuku could tell that Papa Zashi had made them lunch this morning, as their bentos had little smiley faces on the onigiri made out of tiny carrot slices. The two ate their lunch quietly with the sounds of kids playing bonus games during the lunch break at the festival. Tensei's phone buzzes many times with messages that he ignores as he eats his food. The man doesn't even smile back at the onigiri before eating it. Stalker wanders out of Toshi's room for a bit to check out the area and returns to it shortly after saying hi to Izuku. Bandit is in the room with him too, but refuses to leave his hiding spot from inside the cat tree, like the scaredy mouse he is. Yes, Izuku knows the saying is scaredy cat, but calling a cat a mouse is a much more fitting insult. Before too long, the one-on-one fights come on, and Izuku struggles on who to cheer on. Most of the people fighting are his friends, and he doesn't want to pick one over the other, so he cheers for everybody. Obviously, Toshi gets the most cheers, but that should be a given. Some of the hero students are from Class 1B, and Izuku hasn't met them yet, but they have cool quirks too. Denki against the girl with ivy hair was the funniest, along with Kiri and his metal twin. He ended up covering his ears when Cheiko and Kaken fought, but they both fought like heroes. Toshi lost on his second round against Shoto as some ice froze him in place, but Ida got to the third round after the pink girl from Toshi's team messed with him and her babies. He didn't fully understand all she was talking about, but the gadgets Ida wore looked cool. Ida lost third round, but he got fourth place as Shadow grabbed him in their fight and threw him out of bounds. Shoto got second as he lost in a crazy fight to Kaken, and the Grump refused to wear his medal. As the festival was over, the television got turned off, and Tensei insisted on Izuku taking a nap as he skipped nap time to watch the competition. He tried to argue, but Tensei found him a perfect spot on the floor that had been warmed up by the sun for hours and was soon purring away in content. Both Lady and Tigger joined him with his scarf being used as both blanket and pillow for the three of them. Izuku slept for a long time as all the excitement of the day wore him out, and his family returned to see his cuddle pile all wrapped up in the scarf, happy to sleep the rest of the day away if they would let them. The sound of the front door unlocking wakes Izuku up from his nice nap in the best sun spot of the house. He lazily stretches on the floor and extends his arms and legs as far out as they will go as he yawns. With a little flex of his claws to stretch his hands and feet too, Izuku rolls off his back and onto his belly to stand up. Walking through the doorway are his favorite people, and the toddler runs to them to give them the best hugs. He happily rambles on about how awesome they all did in the festival. Even Dadzawa, who was a grump the whole time. In his excitement, Izuku fails to realize he let the nickname slip, but freezes when he hears the man's quiet gasp. The 3-year-old feels his ears fall to the back of his head in nervousness. He had been running in circles around the 3 family members as he rambled, but has now come to a stop in front of them. Izuku begins to tear up as Zawa stays quiet and keeps his eyes stubbornly towards the floor as he hears Zashi's leather pants squeak as the man bends down to his eye level. "Can you look at me, kid? I promise we aren't mad." Lady gently side bumps Izuku's side and purrs to let him know it is okay. No one since screams anger, but it is still something he hasn't smelled before. With his hair slightly covering his face, Izuku slightly tips his head up and sees tears in Zashi's eyes too, but he is smiling. The boy tilts his head to the side in confusion as he doesn't understand. "There he is," Zashi says happily as they make eye contact. "Baby, no one is mad about you calling Sho Dadzawa, especially your Zawa. We just weren't expecting to hear you say that. That's all." Izuku glances over to his Zawa and sees a tiny smile and blush on his face. "Come here, kid," his dad says, and that's all Izuku needs for permission before giving the man an even bigger hug than he did earlier. "Group hug," Papa Zashi yells, and 2 more pairs of arms join in causing Izuku to purr loudly. A throat is cleared to grab the family's attention as Tensei awkwardly stands in the hall, having witnessed the entire thing. "Sorry to break this up, but something came up at work, and I really got to go." Shoyuta gives his friend a look, silently questioning if everything is okay, and receives a shake and look saying Tensei will inform him of it all later. The family says goodbye to the man, and Hizashi thanks him for the help as he walks him to the door. Izuku gives his new friend a quick hug too as the man seems worried and wants to help. He receives a hair ruffling in thanks before the man rushes off. After such an emotional moment, despite how quickly it was resolved, left Izuku feeling a bit tired. Dinner goes by quickly as Hitoshi is exhausted as well, and the 2 heroes know better from years of experience to never say no to an extra few hours of sleep. Everyone gets ready for bed quickly, and Izuku is fighting to stay awake for he doesn't want to miss story time. He fights valiantly, but loses only a few lines into his book, If You Give a Cat a Cupcake. And if Shoyuta and Hizashi shed a few happy tears before going to sleep, no one can really blame them. In the morning, Hizashi cries happy tears again when Izuku nervously calls him Papa and grins proudly all the way to UA, where he gushes to Namiri about his new title. Naturally, this means Nizu knows now too, but the rat will keep the information close to his chest for Izuku's safety. Shoyuta ended being the one to remind Izuku that he has to keep who his Papa and Dad are a secret to keep the bad guys away. He reassures Izuku that they love him and their new names, but that some people are very mean and might use that knowledge to hurt him or them for being heroes. Shoyuta hates having to scare Izuku by telling him this, but he has heard horror stories about villains and heroes' kids that he doesn't want happening to his family. Izuku hangs out in the teacher's lounge, cuddling with his dadzawa, as he quietly processes everything until it's class time. He gently sinks his claws into his dad's shirt as Shoyuta walks the two of them to 1A's door with a large stack of papers in his arms. All right, demon spawns. You all did well in the festival, and most of you got offered internships. Aizawa-sensei explains that anyone without any offers still have a few options for hero agencies as he passes out the papers and goes to write the agencies open for everyone on the board. Izuku gets to help pass out the papers too and leaves his dad's side to look at the hero offers as the man writes on the whiteboard. Izuku goes to Blasty Kaken first, as he is the future #1 hero and has a super big and heavy stack of papers. The little boy gasps at Mirko's name is up on top of the list, as she is one of his favorites because she is sort of like him. Kaken doesn't seem as impressed, so Izuku does what any proper fanboy would do and starts rattling off all her stats to sway the hero to Mirko's side. And he clearly does a good job, because Kaken scratches his ears and tells him he is convinced before writing the heroine's name on his internship paper. All right, Fuzzy Ball, go run off and help the other extras. They clearly need it. Bakugo states loudly for the others to hear and smirks at them knowingly. Aizawa speaks up as Izuku struggles to decide who to go to next. Hold on, Kit, he says to Izuku before addressing the class. Before you all fight for Izuku's help, every hero needs a good name. One that the people can trust to call on for help, and you won't be going to the internship without one. However, it's been decided for me that I am not the one to be trusted with approving names, so... Hearing her signal, Midnight makes her dramatic entrance. She's swinging the overly large door open and sachets her way into the room. With a snap of her WHB, she announces, "Old Razorhead over there doesn't know how to properly name anything, so it's my job to help you young heroes in training chose the perfect name. You may change it if you want later on, but your old name could stick better than the new one, so think carefully or you'll end up with a name like your Racerhead." She passes out small white bards to the class, and Izuku trails behind her, helping out by handing out the markers. He gasps in excitement when Uraraka takes her marker and sees the small pink pads on her fingers. "We match." The boy squeals and drops the remaining markets in his hands so he can show off his finger pads. He hears the girls and even some of the guys talking, but is too absorbed in the moment with Cheiko to pay attention to them. Izuku giggles as she gently presses on each of his finger pads and watches as each nail turns into a claw. He is happy she is being so careful as he doesn't want to accidentally scratch his friend, and tries to hold still as his nails go back and forth between clipped and sharp. Eventually, Robo Ida does his choppy hands and tells Cheiko to work on her hero name, and Izuku runs over to help the others as his finger pad buddy already has her name picked out. Uravity. Annie Nim tells Mina she can't be Alien Queen for some reason, and Kaken got all blasty and grumpy when his names were rejected. He runs over to help the future hero and whispers the idea to him, and gets another hair ruffle as thanks. Sue chooses Froppy, the rainy season hero, which is cool, although Izuku doesn't like how cold the rainy season can get. Annie Nim tells Mina that Pinky is a good name along with Jiro going as Earphone Jack. As the number of students picking their names grows smaller, Izuku grows sleepy and cuddles with Dadzawa in his sleeping bag. Ida's loud announcement of his name joining his family as Nitro Burst, the speed hero, is the last thing the toddler hears before fully falling asleep for the rest of the afternoon. A few weeks passed since the training trauma, and Izuku still refused to ever be alone. Either Aizawa, Hizashi, Hitoshi, Namuri, or Nizu had to be with him at all times, or he would have a full-on meltdown. All Might had attempted on multiple occasions to apologize, but Izuku had learned to be very sassy due to spending time with Papa Mike and Annie Nim, and would stick his button nose in the air and scamper off. He learned quickly, though, not to close his eyes as he walking into the doorway the first time he sassed the hero. He had also developed a major fear of the dark, but Hitoshi solved that problem by taking Izuku to the mall and buying him fairy lights to put in his room. Occasionally, even that wasn't enough to calm him down, but Aizawa and Hitoshi both had insomnia, so they were happy to cuddle him to sleep when needed. But neither All Might nor Izu's fear of the dark was the worst of Aizawa and Hizashi's worries. Their greatest worry was Izuku's mother. Recovery Girl had received his DNA test results and also informed them privately that he was slightly malnourished. Aizawa had thought Izuku was small because he was part cat, but that hadn't been the only factor. Inko Midoriya was married to Hisashi Midoriya, but been divorced only a few months before Izuku was abandoned. It wasn't stated or really known as to why the man left, but the divorce had been very private. Soon after, Inko lost her job and began to frequent at bars and struggled to pay her bills on time. Hisashi did provide her with money to help raise Izuku, but according to records, it all went towards Inko. Aizawa was happy to track her down and arrest her as he raced her head for child neglect and abandonment, but didn't know how to tell Izuku. He knew Izuku was smart and would most likely figure out he had been abandoned sooner than later, but he wasn't sure how the truth about his mother would affect him mentally. They had told Izuku on his second day with them that his mama had left him in their care for a while, but he knew that would only keep the curious kitten appeased for so long. What Aizawa and Hisashi didn't know was that Izuku had already come to the realization that his mother had in fact not wanted him and was crying alone in his room. He had been reading many news stories Nizu had given him and had just finished the story called Are You My Mother? It was an easy and fun book to read as he did still enjoy picture books, but this one showed the baby bird with a loving mama bird at the end. He knew moms were supposed to be loving and care for you like the mommy bird, and for the most part his mom had been that way too. But ever since his father left, she had grown mean. Over time, his mama had come home, stumbling through the door, all dizzy and smelling funny. He knew the box he was dumped and set free. He knew she no longer wanted him. But it wasn't until reading that book that he finally admitted it. Izuku hadn't realized it, but fat tears had started to slip down his freckled face. Little whimpers could be heard just outside his room, and Hitoshi soon heard them through his room. Being the good big brother he was, Hitoshi rushed across the hallway and wrapped the Nico up in his arms. "Why are you crying, Kit?" he asked, making Izuku let out a tiny giggle at the use of his brother's favorite nickname for him. "Why doesn't my mama want me?" Izuku sniffled as he snuggled tightly in his brother's arms. Having been adopted by Aizawa at age 8, Hitoshi knew the feeling of abandonment well and winced before responding. "Think about it this way, bud. Your mama wasn't always the nicest to you, right?" He waited for Izuku to nod before continuing. "Being the mean mama she is, she decided to say goodbye and never see you again. And that hurts, I know it does. However, we both got really lucky because we both got chosen by Dad and Papa. While neither of our original parents wanted us, they chose to be stuck with us forever and ever." At this point, Hitoshi dug his fingers into Izuku's sides and began to tickle him until he begged for mercy. The two happily laughed, oblivious to the two smiling parents standing behind the door with smiles on their faces. They had heard most of the conversation and were proud of how Hitoshi handled the conversation. Not even a minute later, Hitoshi and Izuku fell asleep cuddling on the bed, and the pair of adults quietly wished them good night before making their way to bed as well. They placed the adoption papers for Izuku on their night table before crawling into bed, knowing in the morning the little boy they've taken and will soon officially become a part of their happy family. Early the next morning, Aizawa was shuffling around in the kitchen, making his pot of morning coffee, when he heard little feet tiptoeing towards him. Izuku had been trying to scare his new dad for the past couple days after Papa Mike told him it was impossible. Although being a cat boy helped Izuku naturally to be quieter than most with extra pads on his feet, Aizawa has several years of training as an underground hero and could easily pick up on his little giggles. Aizawa continued on making his coffee as if he didn't hear his little one and waited for him to sneak closer step by. Step. He smirked under his scarf as Izuku prepared to pounce. Rah! Izuku began to growl, but quickly gave a small squeal of fright as Aizawa spun around and grabbed him before letting out a small boo. All the commotion woke up Hitoshi and Hisashi, and the pair soon walked in on a sweet sight. Aizawa had Izuku on his arms, comforting him as little sniffles could be heard and apologizing for scaring him. The two didn't want to let the adorable sight go to waste, and of course quickly recorded and sent it to both the Pro Hero group chat and the Class 1A chat. Izuku had called Hitoshi Big Brother in front of the class, and Todoroki was quite smug about his theory being mostly correct. Aizawa threatened the class with extra training for a month if they told anyone, but no one really minded. At this point, they slipped their phones back into their pockets, and Aizawa had moved on to give the tiny toddler tips on how to scare people and telling him to use it on his Annie night when they got to UA. Izuku, wanting nothing more than to please his dad, innocently agreed and scampered up to his room to finish getting ready. The happy family of four ate a quick breakfast, and Hisashi could barely keep from laughing as Aizawa gave Izuku more tips to scare people on the ride to school. Hitoshi recorded the entire conversation for emergency cases of blackmail and went to class early after Aizawa promised to record Midnight's reaction for him to watch later. Izuku happily skipped to the teacher's lounge with Aizawa and Hisashi following behind, smiling at his excitement. As Aizu slips in the room, he sees most of the teachers are already in there, including Midnight. He quietly slips across the room like his dad had taught him and put up a finger to his lips as Hound Dog and Ectoplasm watch in confusion. Midnight was in the middle of a conversation with All Might when they both jump in fright and spin around at the sound of a ferocious roar. All Might was caught so off guard that he shrunk back down into his Small Might form and coughed out BLD all over Midnight. This then caused Midnight to screech, "The skinny skeel boy just bled all over me," and ran from the room completely oblivious to the fact that Izuku was the one to cause it all. He watched as his Annie sped out with an innocent look on his face and smiled at Small Might with his present mic speaker toy in his hands. The first time he had seen All Might get sick, Izuku cried for an hour out of fear of the BLD and worry for the hero, but had grown used to it by now. All Might just gaped at him with his jaw on the floor as the toy was slipped back into Izuku's bag, and he ran to his dad silently asking if he gained his approval. He was given a small pet around his ears and immediately gave off his radiant smile, knowing he made his dad laugh. But Aizawa wasn't the only one impressed by Izuku. No, as Nizu watched the teachers laugh in the lounge, he discovered he had found a new partner for creating chaos. By the end of the day, Nizu had introduced Izuku to many new forms of pranking and even showed him how to get around the school through the vents. When Nizu waved goodbye to Izuku, Aizawa unintentionally shuddered at the gleam of mischief in the principal's eyes. Later at dinner that night was when Aizawa realized why Nizu had looked so mischievous at the sound of Present Mic's famous shriek. A-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H. The sight of Hisashi's panic was enough to make Aizawa let out a long sigh. A spider was innocently sitting alone in the center of the floor with Hisashi climbed on top of a table, screaming away. Hitoshi got the entire interaction recorded on his phone, but if you ask, he will deny it and claim he never congratulated his little brother on a great prank either. It's been 2 months since Aizawa found Izuku, and Hisashi was ready to officially adopt his favorite green kitten. They had waited a few days after overhearing Izuku and Hitoshi's conversation, and to be honest, Hisashi had run out of patience. It was the weekend, and Izuku could tell Papa Mike wanted to say something and about to burst. "What's up, Papa? Why are you so excited?" he asked, swishing his tail around in confusion. Izuku had formed a habit of fiddling with his tail whenever nervous, and Hisashi placed a little bit on his hip to help calm him down. "Me and Dadzawa have a surprise for you is all. No need to worry, little one." Izuku quietly giggled at his papa's nickname for his dad and nuzzled his head into Mick's neck. Hisashi walks both of them into his bedroom and grabs the adoption papers off his nightstand before returning to the living room. As they walked in, Aizawa sat waiting in his sleeping bag, slurping on a protein pouch, still half asleep from his patrol late last night. All three signed the papers in all the necessary places, and Hitoshi snuck a few pictures from behind stairs. The now official family of four wanted to celebrate together by introducing Izuku to the arcade and go to the mall after to buy him some new outfits and more stuff for his room. Izuku hadn't let them buy much for him before due to the fact that he still strongly believed his stay was not permanent. After all, if his own parents didn't want him, why would his new dad and papa keep him forever? Clearly able to see that something was bothering Izuku as they walked to the arcade, Hitoshi grabbed his little brother and tossed him in the air, making him squeal. Walking in at first was hard for Izuku, as the sound were loud to his sensitive ears, but his dad was prepared as he pulled out the earbuds Momo made him. The little Nico immediately relaxed and smiled gratefully at Shota. Hitoshi happily showed his brother his favorite games, and Izuku did surprisingly well at pre-quirk era games like skee-ball and the claw machine. Hitoshi and Izuku worked together to win plenty of tickets and won enough to trade in for a thing of cotton candy to share and a laser pointer. Izuku also won a black cat plushie and golden bird stuffed animal that he named Daddy Cat and Papa Birdie from the claw machine. The four went to the mall next, and Aizawa ended up carrying Izuku after he crashed from a sugar rush he gained from eating most of the cotton candy on an empty stomach. Hizashi grabbed many outfits from stores all over and helped the toddler try them on to determine his size, and Hitoshi got a few new shirts and sweatshirts as well. They stopped for late lunch around 1, and Hitoshi ordered Izuku fish katsudan, claiming the cat in him will love it. Izuku's eyes sparkled after his first bite, and Hizashi fretted over him for the next few minutes as he quickly shoveled the rest in his mouth, making his papa worry he would choke. Izuku was in need of a nap after lunch, as he was still only 3 years old, and they headed home. As Izuku slept, both parents mentally added a note in their heads to remember Izuku went crazy for fish and messaged with their fellow teachers about the party they wanted to throw for him on Sunday. It was a small event that Nizu allowed them to hold at the school, and Izuku made sure to hug everyone thanks when he received his gifts. By the time class on Monday came back around, Izuku was exhausted from the fun weekend and was bundled up in his new, fuzzy, black blanket in his dad's strong arms. Midnight had bought him the blanket as she knew cats enjoyed blankets and wanted to get him the best one yet. Sometime during second PRD, Izuku woke up to the sounds of 1A's loud chatter and was quick to proudly tell them all about his new family. Hitoshi fondly rolled his eyes at his little brother's excitement, knowing the rest of the day no one would be able to focus on class because of him. Todoroki's eyes widened a few moments later and exclaimed that his theory was correct, and Hitoshi grumbled that he was adopted, so he wasn't actually Aizawa's secret love child. Everyone was quiet for a bit as they realized Shoto's theory was correct for once, and then went back to talking. Hitoshi was pleased to know that no one really cared about him being their teacher's son, but asked them to keep it a secret from anyone else for safety reasons. The class happily agreed, as Kirishima claimed that sharing it would put them in danger and was unmanly. Unnoticed by the class, Eraserhead slightly smiled as his class all agreed to keep his children safe and moved on to different topics of drama. He was glad he didn't have to threaten them for his family's sake and went back to sleep. As he slept, the class all gathered around Izuku and sat him on top of their sensei's desk. The girls made him a paper crown and draped his blanket around him like a cape. A few of the guys gave Izuku some snacks and candy they had in their bags as a gift, while the girls just cuddled with him and played games for the rest of class. Momo even made him his very own Eraserhead sweatshirt and customized present mic sunglasses, as he still had the headphones she had made him for before. Izuku was exhausted again by the end of class, but he was happy, and that's all that mattered. Hitoshi laughed as the 3-year-old was too tired to walk on his own and laid the kid's head on his shoulder. He walked the two of them to the teacher's lounge, while Aizawa finished some grading for Izuku to show off his new stuff. At the sight of their papa, he did grabby hands. Once snuggled up once more, he pointed to his glasses and sleepy claimed he looked like his dad and papa. He completely fell asleep not too long after, and when they finally drove home, Shota carried him to the couch, and they happily napped together well until dinner time. Ever since Izuku had gotten some of his new outfits, he didn't always like to change out of them. He was quite proud of them, as they were proof of his new family, and his Eraserhead sweatshirt was his absolute favorite. It had gotten to the point that he would sometimes refuse to take it off for days, or he wouldn't speak to anyone till he got it back. It was growing into quite the problem, and neither hero knew how to handle it, as they didn't want to ask Hitoshi to use his quirk to convince his little brother to change. It was cute at first, and Aizawa was embarrassed to see his youngest son act like his #1 fan, but they didn't buy Izuku several outfits for him to only wear the one. The thing was, no one could come up with a good argument to convince Izuku to change clothes. The little boy never smelled bad, as Izuku made sure to be very careful to never get it dirty, especially when eating, but he had now worn it for the past 3 days in a row. By the 4th day, both men had given up, as it wasn't that big of a deal, and they knew Izuku would have to grow out of the phase eventually. It was currently lunchtime, and Izuku went to eat in the cafeteria with Hitoshi in order to show his sweatshirt off to the entire school. No one was allowed to know he was Eraserhead or Present Mixed Kid, so the story was that he was one of the teacher's friend's kid who had agreed to help the hero student train. It sounded a bit overly complicated, but being overcomplicated would make it seem full of too many details to not be real. Plus, Nizu was the principal and known to be overly complicated, so it worked, as no one wanted a question to occasionally feral rat. Izuku had walked in with Class 1A as he held his Bubba's hand into the cafeteria, and Hitoshi had left him with 3B as he got his food. He returned with food for his baby brother before Monama could wander over to contaminate the child's innocence with his arrogance, and Izuku whined for a total of 5 seconds. He shut up when he smelled the sashimi, type of fish dish, Hitoshi had grabbed for him. His eyes twinkled at the sight, and he hugged the older boy tightly in thanks. He sat happily in Hitoshi's lap as his little legs lightly swung back and forth, and eagerly grabbed his chopsticks to devour his food with. However, disaster struck as a bit of soy sauce dripped off his fish and fell in slow motion onto his prized possession. Fat tears grew in his eyes as he saw how the sauce begun to leave a dark stain. Hitoshi took off his sweatshirt and put on a clean shirt Momo created for him before walking him to Papa Mick's room to help calm him down. Hizashi immediately wrapped the sobbing toddler in his arms and grabbed his blanket and stuffed cat he had brought with him to school for the day. The hero calmed Izuku down and coaxed him into eating a few bites of his lunch to keep him fed, and made him giggle as he made funny faces and talked in silly voices. Izuku stayed in his arms as the man taught his next 2 classes to a group of general ed students and business students. Both classes loved Izuku, and several students were even lucky enough to get Izuku to cuddle in their laps for a few minutes. As 2 hours passed, Power Loader returned with a stain-free sweatshirt. Fresh tears slipped down Izuku's face in happiness as he hugged the sweatshirt tightly, as if it would disappear if held any lighter. He ran to his dad's room and struggled to push the door open. Aizawa seemed to realize what he was trying to do, as it was slowly pulled open with a smirk as Izuku huffed in frustration. He snapped out of his pout after a few short seconds when he remembered his sweatshirt and proudly showed it to his hero. The girls could be heard cooing at his actions in the background as Aizawa pet Izuku's ears, and he ran into the room to put his sweatshirt safely away in his tiny backpack. It then took Shota an additional week to convince Izuku that it was okay to wear the sweatshirt again and that they could just clean it if it got dirty. Izuku was skeptical, but was soon seen wearing it again, but this time only once or twice a week. He was still extremely proud of it and would show it to the students he had befriended in his papa's class whenever he saw them in the hallways. He also did it because he received many free head pats and ear scratches. Denki Kaminari was bored, and that usually leads to him doing things without thinking at all. Izuku had been making class with Aizawa more fun by cuddling in his lap occasionally, as he liked to cuddle with different people throughout the week, but it was still boring. He would pet Izuku's fur or Ojiro's tail to help him focus, but it only helped for so long. A bored Denki is a chaotic, causing Denki, and he loved to create theories in his head and test them out in the most chaotic way possible. This day was no different, and he had spent the past 2 days in class wondering how much alike cats and Izuku's reactions were. So naturally, he planned to test his theory behind his sensei's back for the sake of his neck not being wrong. Most of the time, Denki did not want to risk his teacher's wrath, but this one seemed worth it. Once Denki was sure Aizawa was asleep, he reached into his bag to grab his weapon of choice. He was well aware that it may not even work, as this object only affected 50% of cats. It was kind of like giving weed to a child, but he only had a small amount, so it shouldn't be too bad. It was a green herb and surprisingly cheap to buy. Hitoshi was busy arguing with Shoto about another theory as he pulled out a sealed bag. It had one large word written on it in Sharpie. It read catnip in all capital letters and was underlined and had 3 exclamation marks at the end. Izuku was snuggled in his lap and looked up as he felt Denki moving around. "What are you doing, Denki?" He tried to softly whisper, but Mina and Jiro quickly turned to him in worry. Jiro gasped as she noticed the title on the bag and tried to grab it with her ear jacks, but Denki had already opened it and pushed it near Izuku's head gently. He didn't want to hurt Izuku, but he definitely wasn't going to risk getting caught without seeing the affects of catnip on the half-kitten in his lap first. He pays no attention to Mina and Jiro as they nervously glance between him and the toddler, as he is only focused on the intensity of Izuku's purring. Hitoshi had explained to the before that the louder Izuku purrs, the more content and safe he feels around them, but he had yet to purr for anyone but Hitoshi, Aizawa-sensei, and surprisingly present Mike. Denki finally noticed how silent his class had become and remembered the catnip still laying out in the open in his desk for everyone to see. "Denki," Hitoshi growled out, and the electric user quickly shoved the remaining catnip in his bag. Denki nervously chuckled as Izuku continued to purr loud enough to be heard throughout the entire room and passed the 3-year-old to his older brother. Hitoshi opened his mouth to say something when he jolted and caught the green kitten that had been his brother only a moment ago. "Well, that's new," Shoto said in his monotone voice, causing most of the class to burst into laughter as Izuku purred on. Izuku's kitten form was small, just like him, and his fur was similar to the color of his ears and tail in human form, so dark green that it almost looked black. He had the same emerald-colored eyes as well. Hitoshi suddenly smirked and pulled out a laser pointer, explaining he had wanted to do this for a while. He called Izuku's name to gain his attention and waved the pointer in front of his face. Izuku's eyes followed it back and forth, and head slowly moved side to side along with the pointer. Hitoshi clicked it on, making Kitten Izuku startle, but his wide slanted eyes seemed to grow even wider as he was placed on the ground and chased the light. He was clumsy as he tripped over his own paws many times, but his brother was careful to not make him run into anything. Unfortunately, when Bakugo let out a loud snort of laughter and turned red from embarrassment, his yelling that followed woke their sensei up from his nap. This gave the drugged 3-year-old the perfect chance to escape unnoticed. The green-eyed kitten soon found himself stumbling around 1A's halls until he felt a soft pair of hands gently picking him up. Izuku looked up to see the shy third year he had met before in the cafeteria. The quiet third year ran his fingers through Izuku fur, caused a deep rumbling purr to build from his chest. Amajiki smiled as he noticed the kitten's dazed stare. "Did someone give you catnip, little one? Let's go find your owner." The duo didn't make it too far when Izuku sees a smiling blonde and bubbly blue-haired girl coming their way. "Oh, that kitten is so cute." Nijire squeals. "Where on earth did you find him? Can we keep him? Please, please." Mirio shakes his head as Nijire rambles once more. But before he can say anything, Aizawa rushes towards them with his red eyes blazing. Amajiki suddenly feels the kitten in his arms get slightly heavier and looks down to see Izuku. Aizawa lets out a sigh of relief and scoops the Nico into his own arms. Izuku gives off a lopsided grin and giggles absent-mindedly. It doesn't take the big 3 long to figure out someone practically drugged the child and was headed toward a world full of pain of hardcore training for hours. Long story short, Aizawa nearly expelled Denki, and after the catnip incident, Izuku is still a little off and could be seen napping for most of the day in his dad's scarf. Izuku was having a relaxing night. He was surrounded by a nest of blankets next to a warm fireplace and had just finished a dish of sweet milk in his kitten form. His big brother was softly petting the backs of his ears, and life couldn't be better. He listened as the fire crackled and left his fur feeling nice and toasty. He was so comfortable and his belly full, he never wanted to have to move. "Wake up, kid," His papa whispered. "Wait, papa? Come on, baby, wake up." Hizashi watched with a smile as his little kitten stretched in a very cat-like way and let out a long yawn. He waited as Izuku slowly woke up and pulled him up on his hip. "Do you remember who is coming over today?" Izuku scrunched his nose in concentration. "Who?" he asked. "We're going to meet some heroes, and they have a nephew your age. They will be here soon, so you need to get ready." Izuku's eyes light up with excitement and tries to wiggle down from his papa's arms. Hizashi laughs and helps Izuku pick out an outfit with a small red flannel, white shirt, and ripped black jeans. Both pro heroes have given up on making Izuku wear shoes, so he goes without them at the moment as they made the pads on his feet a bit uncomfortable. Running at the speed of Ingenium, Izuku flies down to kitchen and immediately starts scarfing down his breakfast. Being the amazing brother he is, Hitoshi teases him by grabbing at his tail as it happily wags back and forth. Soon after, the two brothers could be seen heading down to the park a couple blocks down, with Izuku skipping ahead of a tired-looking Hitoshi. They spent an hour or so chasing each other around, although Hitoshi did most of the chasing, and then Izuku swung as high as he could on the swings. Once high enough, he loved to test out the theory of cats always landing on their feet, and could be heard giggling as his brother yelped every time he jumped off. Eventually, Hitoshi questioned how much more his heart could take in one day and walked the emerald-eyed Nico back home for a nice cat nap before the hero group comes over to visit. Hitoshi was going to have to wait on the nap, though, because the heroes were already there. "Oh, hi," Hitoshi said awkwardly at the door as the entire room turned to see who was coming in. "Move, Hito," Izuku whined as he squished his small head in between his brother's legs. He freezes at the sight of a small boy wearing a red hat with two little horns on top. The two have a staring contest for a few tense seconds before a loud laugh breaks their concentration. Izuku looks at the large laughing man and saw that he and his three female companions reminded him of the cosplayers Mina and Denki had recently taught him about. They noticed his state of confusion and quite literally jumped into an introduction. The large laughing man called himself Tiger, and the wide-eyed lady whose hair is similar to his told him to call her Ragdoll. The energetic blonde cooed at him and said she was Pixie Bob, while the quiet one claimed to be the boy, Koda's Aunt Mandalay. Izuku listened quietly as they all told him this, but tilted his head in confusion as they all meowed and grouped together in a pose. Hizashi chuckled at his youngest son's actions and explained, "Izuku, these are the heroes I told you we would be meeting today. They're the wild pussycats. Do you remember Nisa teaching you about them?" Izuku glanced at the group one more time before gasping and running up to them and rambled question after question about their quirks. His excited chatter didn't even slow down as Aizawa picked him up and placed him on his hip. "Kitten, you can ask them all about their quirks later. They brought Koda with them hoping you two could be friends, so why don't you show him to his room while the adults talk for a bit?" Izuku let out a small huff, but nodded his head before sliding himself down his dad's leg and happily dragged Koda upstairs with him. Once they reached Izuku's room, Izuku jumped onto his bed and spun to face Koda. "Hi, I'm Izuku and I'm 3, and I'm a Nico, which means I'm part cat. You probably already knew that." Izuku nervously played with his tail as he hadn't talked to many kids his age in a while. Koda remained as quiet as ever and simply leaned in and softly pet Izuku's ears to try and calm him down. What he didn't expect to happen was for Izuku to soon fall asleep in his lap. Not that he minded. A few hours passed, and the pair was still happily asleep. When Hitoshi was sent up to their room to check on them, he was told to just let them sleep. Eventually, the pussycats did have to leave and were forced to tug Izuku out of Koda's surprisingly strong grip. When Koda did wake up in his aunt's car along with the other 3 cat-obsessed adults, having taken upon their obsession himself, he spent the entire ride home begging to kidnap Izuku and make him their group's mascot. Much like most cats, Izuku hates bath time and will do everything in his power to avoid it. Granted, his mother always insisted in him taking baths in cold water to save money, and cold water is terrible. He would be shivering for the next hour as he would bundle up in blankets after to warm back up. His refusal to take baths got to the point that Shota would have to use every trick in the bag to either trick or bribe the kitten into the tub. So you can imagine his surprise when Izuku didn't shy away from Koda's water quirk. They were having a play date at the Pussycat's land, and Koda was attempting to do tricks with his quirk when he accidentally sprayed Izuku in the face. Aizawa watched in anticipation for Izuku to begin his hissy fit and to wildly shake around to get the water off, but it never happened. Instead, he just let out a little giggle that turned into a laughing fit at the sight of his dad's shocked face. Koda begins to chase Izuku around, trying to use his fingers to make his water work more like a sprinkler to spray them both off. Aizawa's confusion grew as at moments Izuku would jump away and hiss, and others giggle and spin around. Turns out that due to Aizawa trying to give Izuku a bath as quick as possible, he never gave the water time to warm up, and Izuku secretly loved a warm bath. He never said anything as he didn't want to make his dad upset with him by requesting warmer water. Aizawa shook his head as the two swim around in the hot springs and splash each other for fun. As they cuddle in the springs, Izuku's head soon bobs up and down as he fights sleep. Dadzawa scoops Izuku and Koda up, and they fall asleep almost as soon as they are redressed and put to bed. Both Aizawa and Mandalay take a few pictures and discuss many play dates that are sure to take place in the future. Needless to say, Aizawa always let Izuku test out the water temperature before helping Izuku take a bath. Getting out a few of Itoshi's old bath toys helped too, much to the older boy's embarrassment. Izuku especially loved to play with the boats and pretend to play Battleship in the water. Hisashi came up with the idea to use bubbles too, and after that, Izuku would rush to the bathroom and wait by the tubway before bath time. Aizawa had to create a rule at the dinner table that Izuku couldn't scarf down dinner to have longer bath time because it was disrespectful to the person who had cooked the meal and he could choke. Izuku loved to help add the bubble mix to the water and create bubble beards, but learned the hard way to be careful to keep it out of his eyes. Izuku was also gifted with erasable water crayons when Namiri first heard of his struggles against bath time, as she loved to spoil Izuku. He could write on the shower wall and color in it with the crayons that easily washed off with water once he finished his bath. Washing his hair was an extra struggle, however, as cat ears hate getting water in them. Aizawa and Hisashi always took turns with this chore, as Izuku would cry any time they got wet. He hated the feeling of water in them and would shake his head until it felt better, but usually lead to a headache later that night. Eventually, they discovered waterproof ear plugs to use whenever it was time to wash hair, and Izuku would purr as one of his father's gently scrubbed shampoo and conditioner through his thick, curly hair. Once all clean, he would get wrapped up like a burrito in his fluffy black towel and carried to his room to choose his pajamas for the night. Izuku loved his pajamas and had onesies, pajama sets, cotton pairs, flannel sets, and hero costumes. A warm bath every night was the best way to make Izuku sleepy and wash away his energy for the night. He would be read a bedtime story of his choosing and cuddle and purr with his family until he fell asleep in his bed. It was the best bed he had ever had, and he loved all the fluffy blanket and pillows Annie Knight had bought with him on their second trip to the mall together. He used to hate bath time and struggle to sleep, but his new family was different, and he wouldn't trade them for the world. Izuku and Koda got to hang out a lot, and had quickly become the bestest of friends. They were going to hang out again soon, and this time, Izuku's big brothers and his dad's class were coming along too for their summer training camp. Everyone was allowed to go, but a few who scored the lowest on their practical exams were going to receive extra night classes. Izuku was a little upset about this, as it meant he wouldn't get to cuddle with his dad for the next few nights. However, on the bus drive there, he happily cuddled with his favorite personal heater, Shoto Todoroki. He loved to call the quiet Todoroki Shokin, but never cuddled on his right side as it was too cold compared to his toasty left side. Sadly for Todoroki, their cuddle time came to an end when the bus stopped and Aizawa ordered them all off. Izuku squealed happily once he got off and rushes over to his grumpy-looking best friend. He had only just recently reconvened him that heroes were cool and there to save people, but the older boy still wasn't happy to see so many loud wannabe heroes. He hugged Izuku tightly to his chest and let out a loud huff with his chin resting on Izuku's fluffy head as he pet the boy's ears. Most of the girls quietly awed at the boy's behavior, while Hitoshi grumbled about the little punk trying to replace him as a big brother. Izuku giggled, having heard his grumble with his enhanced hearing, and gave him a little wave. Aizawa cleared his throat to gain the class's attention. Where we are now is 3 hours away from our destination. If you look north, we will find it somewhere hidden in these trees. Good luck. Aizawa smirks at the class as they try to make a mad dash back on the bus, only to be forced down the cliff to fight Pixie, Bob's mud monsters. Leaving Pixie, Bob, and Mandalay to have their fun, Aizawa takes the two boys back into the bus and drives them to the camp. The two boys immediately rush off to go, playing the hot springs as Aizawa goes down for a nap. Eventually, he wakes up, and Pixie Bob and Mandalay arrive shortly after. Pixie Bob continues to laugh as she relentlessly attacks Class 1A, leaving Mandalay to check up on the boys. By the time 6 long hours have passed, Izuku and Koda have helped Tiger and Ragdoll finish making dinner and snuck a few bites as well. They chase each other to the front of the building to see the students return. Izuku went because he wanted more cuddles, and Koda just wanted to laugh at their pain and exhaustion. The pussycats laughed at the pair, while Aizawa picked his kitten up to wipe some of dinner off his face. Also because he wanted some cuddles, but if anyone asked, he would deny it. Before long, Izuku heard the class trudging their way down and gave his dad one last cuddle before hopping down. Dadzawa huffed quietly in disappointment and watched as his son run towards his number 1 problem student, the loudest of the bunch and also most promising student. Unfortunately, his attitude and pride were almost bigger than All Might's, and his self-proclaimed group of friends naming their group after him wasn't helping. Bakugo Katsuki, winner of the sports festival and firm believer that he was the next number 1 hero, or as Izuku prefers to call him, Kaken. But that has nothing to do with the fact that he struggles to say Katsuki's actual name. That's right, Kaken was Izuku's favorite of the class quirk-wise. Bakugo had Izuku convinced he would be the number 1 pro hero because in his mind his big brother was destined to be the next number 1 underground hero. He had full faith in both of them and loved to show it through hugs after different or tiring training sessions. Everyone else got hugs after as well. Shoji was the best hugger though. Aizawa was grateful towards the brat though, as he never yelled too loudly anymore for Izuku's sake and was surprised by how good he was with him. Aizawa had a hunch it was because his son stroked the teenager's ego, but he was too tired to convince his son to find a different role model, because at least he was smarter than Skelemite, who was basically working himself to death. Once night came, Izuku joined the boys in the hot springs again as Koda stayed guard against the creepy purple dude Izu warned him had pulled his tail before. And Koda did get to play guard quite early into the night when the shorty came crawling up looking like a crazed animal. After he fell back to the ground, Izuku swatted him for good measure. Little Koda fell soon after getting embarrassed when the girls thanked him, but Hitoshi was there to save the day. Unfortunately, both boys were scarred from seeing Minetta's towel fall off. Izuku cuddled with his brother when his dad ordered them all to go to bed beside his night students and slowly fell asleep, due to his ears being softly scratched. Unknowingly, Izuku let out soft purrs and helped everyone slept soundly throughout the night. Izuku had a lot of fun watching his dad's class train. It reminded him of a funnier and crazier version of the sports festival. He had got to watch it with his parents as they commentated the entire thing. Well, it was mainly Papa Mike, but that's besides the point. Only this time Koda is with him to watch, and his dad mumbled replies to all their questions. Class 1B was training as well, and he found a loud blonde guy and the girl with big hands to be quite funny. He watched for 2 days as all the big kids around him ran around, screamed, and worked themselves until they dropped and then forced to get up again. It would have been quite scary if he didn't find them to be so funny. But time for the 3rd night came, and they were having a scare contest. Now that really was scary, so him and Koda went to go play at his super secret cave spot instead. They were having lots of fun together, chasing each other around until they grew tired and looked at the stars instead. Izuku loved looking at the stars as the city lights seemed to hide away all the stars. Kota had been taught about the stars by Mandalay in case he ever got lost on the woods, and enjoyed teaching them to his friend. Kota was pointing out the Orion's Belt constellation to Izuku when he heard footsteps much louder than anyone he knew of at the camp. "Someone's coming, Kachin. I don't know who it is." "Hi." The two scrambled to hide in the cave, but the mysterious someone rushed toward them and managed to grip Izuku by the tail. He dangles him in front of his face and laughs at Izuku's pain as he cries out. He had more muscles than even All Might with short-cut blonde hair. He had a scary fake eyes, and the snarl on his face was even scarier. Thanks to lessons with Nizu, Izuku recognizes him as muscular. "You're the guy that killed my parents." Kota yelled, "I'll leave my friend alone." "Be more specific, kid. I've killed a lot of parents," Muscular said with a laugh. Kota glared at the monster of a man and shot him with scalding hot water in his real eye. At the same time, Izuku scratched his mechanical eye, breaking it, and was harshly thrown into the side of the mountain. The villain screamed in pain, now blind in both eyes, and begun to wildly swing his arms around trying to find them. "I'll kill you too, little twerps. Get back here, you maggots." Every step the man takes seems to slightly shake the mountain, and the boys are terrified. They had been warned never to wander off too far from the others alone, and they had no way of telling anyone where they were. Kota shakily rushes to Izuku's side as quietly as possible and warns him to be quiet as he whimpers in pain. Kota picks the little Nico up and tries his hardest to run, but Muscular is blindly gaining on them. "We will be okay, Zuchan. Someone will save us soon. The big meanie is being so loud. Surely they've heard him by now." Kota whispers in an attempt to calm down both himself and Izuku after hearing his aunt's voice in his head telling him help is on the way and to hide. The older boy runs as fast as he can as carries his friend away from the monster listening for them. He hides them behind a big tree and hugs the terrified Nico tightly in his lap. Izuku clings on tightly to Kota as his side throbs in pain, knowing neither of them are strong enough to stop the villain. He knows that now all they can do is wait. Luckily for them, a certain someone had followed them before and discovered their super-secret cave spot because they were running out of time. They had heard the commotion when villains who had escaped a prison in the area last week attacked and told Mandalay that they knew where the boys were. They ran faster than ever before as they uttered their quirk to help them move quicker. Trees sped by, and their worry grew as a thunderous yell of fury sounded from a mountain they were rushing towards. Their quirk seemed to grow stronger as they panicked and paid to any gods or deities listening to keep the children safe until they could arrive. The sight of an injured Izuku and tearful Kota filled them with anger and yelled out to the powerhouse of a villain, "Ichiwai, get your dirty paws away from them. Hey, get your dirty paws away from them." Dark Shadow screeched as Tokoyami struggled to regain control of a murderous Dark Shadow. His quirk was going crazy as it quite literally had a mind of its own and wanted to shred the man to shred for hurting the babies. Tokoyami had been the one to follow them to their cave, as he wanted to make sure they were safe, and Shoji had chased after them on their way to protect them. As Dark Shadow grew out of control in the dark night, Shoji heard and saw the destruction and led Black Shadow towards them. Tokoyami's fear for the kids and want to protect them fueled Dark Shadow's overprotective Mama Bear's side, took over as it often was strengthened by his negative emotions like fear and worry. Izuku whimpered in pain again, and Shoji quickly ran over to the terrified pair. Squeezing his eyes tight, praying for the pain to go away, he felt two strong, three-webbed arms scoop both him and Kota up. "Can you tell me what happened?" Shoji whispered. "WL?" Kota began to answer, but was interrupted by Muscular's furious roar. "I will kill all of you. Your deaths will be long and painful, so prepare to die. Time for some fun." "Not on my watch," Tokoyami yelled, furious that anyone could be twisted enough to willingly slaughter children. "You will not hurt the babies." Dark Shadow screeched in agreement before grabbing the man with its claws and slamming him into the ground till knocking the muscled villain unconscious. Shoji quietly chuckled at his friend's comments and smiled under his mask at the sight of Kota's bright red ears. Not a baby, he mumbled. I'm 5. Izuku silently observed and listened to Tokoyami in the background as he struggled to calm down Dark Shadow. Careful not to jar his ribs, he tapped Shoji's shoulder and asked to be sat down next to Tokoyami. Shoji was against it, but buckled under the puppy dog eyes. Well, in his case it's kitten eyes, but that's besides the point. Shoji reluctantly sat Izuku down as Koda quietly demanded him to be careful. Get away from me, eyes, Tokoyami cried out. I don't want you hurt because of me. It's okay, Yami. Just let go. Quit worrying about losing control and relax. Izuku soothed. I trust you. Tokoyami felt a single tear fall before taking a shuddered breath and letting his muscles loosen. Izuku smiled as he watched Dark Shadow slowly calm down and relax along with Tokoyami. Flesh. DL is OS, Del is OS flesh. Screamed a very scary psycho in a straitjacket. Izuku faintly heard himself and Koda scream in terror, causing Dark Shadow to freak out as well. As Dark Shadow's protective nature increased, so did his size and strength. In one blow, the villain was defeated, and Izuku noticed that all his creepy teeth had shattered as well. Thanks for the help, Tokoyami. That guy came super close to eating Bakugo, Todoroki, and me. Hitoshi trailed off as he noticed a little figure next to Dark Shadow. Izuku. Izuku let out a little whimper at the sound of his big brother's shout, and soon felt himself being held in his strong, comforting arms. What happened? Why is my little brother so beat up? Hitoshi demanded. Recognizing the hint of fear in Toshi's voice, Izuku softly patted his brother's hair as his brother had done to him before to help calm him down. Hitoshi smiled down at him before paying attention to Koda as he stuttered an explanation about muscular. But we are okay now, 'cause you guys saved us, Koda said as he finished recounting the terrifying event. Why are the villains here of all places? Did they just stumble upon it on accident? Todoroki asked half to himself. All I know is that some crazy psychos are out to kill us, and I want to beat their asses for hurting our kitten, Bakugo said before blasting off some explosions at the end. Todoroki nodded his head in agreement as he struggled to keep his flames under control, causing him to let off a bit of smoke. Tokoyami is exhausted and Izuku is injured. I say we all go back to camp to get them to safety. Then if Sensei lets us, we can go back with him to help save the others, Shoji said, being the voice of reasoning. TCH whatever, let's go, Bakugo grumbled. And that's the last thing Izuku heard before succumbing to the darkness. When Izuku wakes up, he's still in his brother's arms, but this time it's cold. When he fell asleep, it was warm. He slowly blinks awake and tries to shift his weight before remembering his injuries. Izuku looks around the room the best he can from the awkward angle he found himself in and sees he is in a dark room and that his brother is still asleep but looks hurt. He softly pats Toshi's face, desperate to get out of the scary room and back to Dadzawa and Papa Mike. Toshi, Bubba, please wake up, Izuku cried with fat tears streaming down his freckled face. At first, Hitoshi only let out a soft but tap by tap, Izuku eventually woke him up. Izu, where are we? What happened? Hitoshi whispered. I don't know, Bubba. I'm cold, Izuku said with a shiver. Wanting to comfort his little brother, Hitoshi begins to lift his arms to rub his back only to quickly stop. The sound of chains clattering across the floor echoes, and Izuku looks towards the source to see the chains connected to his brother's wrists. Before either brother can fully panic, they hear clicking heels walking in their direction. They wait in anticipation and are blinded by light as the door to their cell flies open. Mama, Izuku whimpers. Hitoshi whips his head between the mother and son and feels his heart break as he sees the resemblance. Of course, the sweetest child he had ever met would end up having a cruel villain as his mother. Time to go on a trip, baby, the mysterious woman says in a sickeningly sweet voice. Now remember to be good. Hitoshi shivers as her voice grows dark and see her holding up a muzzle, or else your big brother gets it, before becoming sweet again. Got it? Realizing the danger he's gotten his brother into, Izuku quickly nods his head, knowing that a verbal response would receive punishment. Whenever his mama was in a mood, she would get angry at him for making the slightest noise. He even covered his Bubba's mouth to prevent him from getting trouble. Punishments, after all, are no fun. Good boy, his mother praised before her lips twisted into a wicked smile. But unfortunately for you both, Eraserhead had decided that my raising of you brat was not acceptable and had me arrested, so you both are already in trouble. So, the little mutt is coming with me, while Big Brother gets the muzzle. Hitoshi felt his heart shatter as his brother looks at him in terror and begins to understand just how bad his mommy used to be. To make matters worse, Izuku's mom forced Izuku to be the one to muzzle him before she dragged him away. Hitoshi listened for what seemed like hours to Izuku's screams coming from a room somewhere above him, when in reality, it was only 30 minutes. The next thing Hitoshi heard was confusing. Some yelling took place, and the thud of a body falling the floor followed. Izuku had also stopped screaming to be let out, and then a new set of footsteps came to the door. This time the door was slowly opened to let his eyes adjust to light, and a heavily scarred man took his muzzle off. "Sorry about this, kid," the man said as he unlooped the chains from the wall and led him upstairs to his brother. Izuku was being held by a man made of mist and seemed to have greatly calmed down. He even let off a small smile as a hyper-blonde commented to her friend on how cute the little kitten was. But the oddest pair of the bunch was a crusty-looking man with a hand FTSH and a human-sized gecko. As Hitoshi gawked at the strange group, the handyman stepped forward and cleared his throat. "Before you freak out, let's explain. You see, we never meant for you two to get hurt. We are the League of Vigilantes. All for One rescued us. All and trained us to be vigilantes, as none of our quirks are what the pupils would ever accept as anything but useless or villainous. When we heard that some escaped villains were going to attack your camp, we want to try and protect you all." "Hold up," Hitoshi interrupted. "If you are vigilantes, why on earth did you kidnap me and my little brother?" This time the Mist Man answered after giving Izuku a glass of apple juice. "We mean you no harm. We simply were out of options on how to grab the hero's attention. We have been trying to spread the word that no matter what the quirk, anyone could be a hero, but no one would listen. Izuku's mother is, or was a lawyer before her arrest. We had gone to her house several times before to develop plans on how to get our message out. So when she was arrested, we had no choice but to break her out, as we were afraid she would accidentally tell someone about us." Twice, Kirojuri pointed to the blonde girl's friend, used his quirk to make a clone of her. At this point, the scarred man interrupted. "If you promise not to run, we can take the chains off. Like Kirojuri said, we don't want to hurt you. We hope Early just need your help. Oh, I'm Dabi, by the way, and Krusty over there is Tenko. The crazy blonde is Toga, and her friend goes by Twice. The magician hiding in the back is Mr. Compress, and the lizard is Spinner." Hitoshi just nods his head, still trying to wrap his head around all the information he just received. What he doesn't notice is Izuku slipping down from his bar stool and walking over to Tenko. He slightly pulls on the man's jacket before asking his question. "Mr. Krusty, if you don't mean harm, then why did Mama get to punish me and Bubba?" His question sounded innocent enough, but the entire league stiffened at the sadness and betrayal in his voice. Glaring at Dabi for teaching Izuku such an intolerable nickname, Mr. Krusty picked him up with two of his fingers gloved and gave Nico a hug. "Zoo, your mama wasn't supposed to even see you. It wasn't until earlier we even realized she had escaped her room. I'm so sorry she hurt you and your brother." Aizawa was worried sick. His boys had been missing for 2 days now, and some of the students had been injured when the escapees attacked. He never should have let Hitoshi out of his sight. Both his children were gone, and it was all his fault. The worst part was that he had left Izuku with the other students and Vlad King, and yet he had disappeared without a trace. Hizashi wasn't doing any than he was either. They were both a wreck. The news had gotten a hold of what happened when a few students had to go to the hospital. The students were praised for having helped recapture the convicts, but criticized UA at the same time for letting anyone get hurt. Nizu had been forced to apologize to the public just to get them to calm down before they even had any time to search for his kids. He had received a letter earlier that day from a group that called themselves the League of Vigilantes that both boys were fine, but left no clue to if he would ever get to see them again. The letter informed him about their mission, and he felt for them, as his quirk could be considered weak or villainous as well, but they had his kids. He wanted them back, and there was no way he was going to help them when his kids weren't safe and asleep in their beds like they should be. But just as he was about to go storm the police department, a dark portal grew in front of him, and out popped his children. A ragtag group of somebodies came as well, but they weren't important at the moment. "Daddy," his youngest squealed. His heart broke at the sight of the many bandages wrapped around his little body as he gently wrapped him in a hug. Naturally, Hitoshi got dragged into it as well, but neither minded. Then Aizawa remembered the uninvited guests. His eyes glowed red as he told his kids to get behind him. But before he could attack, little hands pulled on his bereaved leg. "Don't, Daddy. Mr. Krusty and his friends are nice. They saved me and Bubba from Mama being mean." And that's all it took for Aizawa to cool down and pull the two boys into another hug. With the boys still in his arms, he twisted around and growled at them to explain. They had the decency to look ashamed before the one he guessed was Mr. Krusty stepped forward and did just that. By the end, his mind raced with several emotions, but ended with him handing Izuku to Hitoshi and punching Tenko in the hand on his face before cooling down. "Okay, I deserve that," he groaned. Shortly after, plans were made and Aizawa begrudgingly agreed to appear on Dreaded Media a few times to support them after setting them up to get their hero license permit. He then shooed them out of his house and immediately called Hizashi. He carefully held the phone away from his ear after informing him that the boys were home, and the happy family of four soon enjoyed some takeout from their favorite Chinese restaurant as they all cuddled on the couch. Izuku was allowed to pick the movie, and they watched some pre-Quirk era animated Disney movies. Robin Hood was Izuku's favorite, with Lilo and Stitch being Hitoshi's favorite. Aizawa was surprised by how much he enjoyed them, but mainly just enjoyed feeling at peace as his boys were okay and safe in his arms once more. By the time the third movie, Brother Bear, was halfway through, everyone but Aizawa were asleep. With a small smile on his face, the hero moved slowly to not wake anyone and turn the movie off. Not wanting his family to wake up with stiff muscles in the morning, he took them one at a time to the MSTR bedroom and placed them all on the bed. Knowing that his family was going to be okay, Aizawa joined them in bed and was asleep in moments. Izuku swung his legs back and forth around his dad's side as he held on by his hip. He was still covered in a few itchy bandages as he was on his way to see Recovery Girl. "Why so quiet, Kit? Does something hurt?" Dadzawa asked in worry. "I'm okay. Are you going to help the League become heroes?" Izuku asked. "Me and the League are going to talk to Nizu about it while you..." He tapped his finger on Izuku's nose, making him scrunch it up. "Get all healed up." Izuku just giggled and nodded his head. Aizawa sat Izuku down on the floor in front of Recovery Girl's office and watched as his little one ran in. She was filing out some reports on her desk with her back turned to them. "Granny!" Chio jumped in surprise as he had decided to be mean and hadn't told anyone else that Izuku was back. She spun around in her chair with tears in her eyes, and Izuku happily jumped in her lap to snuggle. Izuku let out a purr and swung his tail around happily when Aizawa fell to glare. "Shota Aizawa, how dare you not tell me Izuku was safe? You better be glad Izuku is in my lap, or so help me you wouldn't be able to walk for a week as my cane would break your legs," she growled while violently swinging around her cane, but being mindful of Izuku. She had put a pair of earmuffs on his cat years ahead of time. Aizawa just nods, knowing full well the crazy old lady was not joking, and made his way to Nizu's office to finalize the details for the second chance courses. Nizu was the only person he had told about the League, and he had been planning ever since. This would provide many people who turned to villainy as they saw they had no other chance, a second chance. It would provide those with useless and villainous quirks jobs, including heroism without the constant quirkism they had been forced to face. What they didn't know was the plans of a dangerous villain that 3 of their hero students were soon about to face. Both Hitoshi and Kirishima were on their way to be introduced to Sir Knight, eyed by Mirio, and ran into Eri and Overhaul that afternoon. They listened to Mirio and let Eri go back to Overhaul, but Hitoshi took it the hardest. By the time Hitoshi got home, he had let a few tears fall, but had managed to put on a face of boredom and exhaustion. "Hi, Bubba." A flash of green collided into his legs, and his little brother barely wrapped his arms entirely around them. "Hey, kid. I'm tired. Can we just cuddle tonight instead of playing?" "You feeling okay, kid?" Izawa asked him. "Yeah, work studies today was just a bit tiring, and I'm worried about how people will react to Nizu and the League's plan." He quickly lied. His dad just nodded his head and told him to remember to eat before bed. Hitoshi trudged upstairs with Izuku hopping up step by step. Izuku watched as his big brother collided with his bed and ran back downstairs to ask his dad to bring them dinner to bed. Soon the brothers were cuddled up in bed, eating chicken and rice, and watching Lilo and Stitch again. Hitoshi mainly watched as his little brother quoted most of the lines, as it was his current favorite movie. During the scene where Stitch was alien-napped, he pulled Izuku to his chest and hugged him real tight. "I promise I'll never lose to anyone like in the movie, got it?" Izuku just wiggles around to face his brother and held his face with his little hands. "Don't worry, Bubba. I'm not going anywhere." He stood up and kissed his brother's forehead before watching the movie some more and falling asleep. Hitoshi just watched him with a smile and soon joined him in dreamland, content to hold his brother safely in his arms. The look of fear in Eri's eyes that afternoon reminded him so much of Izuku with his mother that it pained him. He never wanted to see fear like that on any child's face, and he was determined to save Eri. Izawa had been keeping a close and watchful eye on both his children since they had been taken, and he was worried about his oldest. His worry only grew as the bags under his son's eyes grew. Izuku and Mike did their best to cheer Hitoshi up, but it didn't seem to help much. So you can imagine his anger when he found out why Hitoshi had been so upset. Not only was he mad at his kid for not telling him the truth, but Night-Eye too, as he hadn't informed him either. Both Kirishima and Hitoshi especially were his responsibility, and he hadn't been told about a dangerous mafia boss being near his students. During the meeting with Night-Eye and many other heroes, Izawa glared at the screen and file he had been given while clenching his fists till they turned white. Hitoshi, Kirishima, Uraraka, and Azui along with the big three were being dragged into this mess, and there wasn't enough of him to go around and watch them all. Much quicker than Izawa would have liked, the day of the raid arrived. Almost immediately they were all split apart. Overpowered thugs with the help of a quirk, increasing drag attacked the police, and a few heroes stayed behind to help. Night-Eye lead the way, and Eraser kept a watchful eye on his students and Sun. Sun Eater was the next to stay behind and fight, and soon as the walls fly around to stop them, Lemillion ran ahead. Fat Gum fell through the wall, but suddenly twice, and Toga appeared and jumped in after him. Soon only Red Riot, Eraserhead, Night-Eye, and Mindjack were left. Kirishima was slowly weakening from constantly using his quirk to break down the walls, but the sound of fighting up ahead helped him persevere. Hitoshi paused for a second to readjust his mask, and as Kirishima joined Mirio. "She's just a child. How could you be so cruel?" Mirio's voice shouted as he dodged another spike. "She's a monster dash." Overhaul froze as Hitoshi walked out of the shadows. "Clean up this mess, and then let yourself be arrested." Izawa smirked, proud of his son's quick thinking and Mirio's look of confusion. "My mask allows me to copy people's voices to make it easier for villains to respond to me." Hitoshi explained to Mirio, and the older boy gave him a blinding smile and began to praise his plus-ultra work. "Watch out!" Kirishima yelled as he rushed forward. One of Overhaul's underlings held a familiar gun pointed at Mirio, and Kirishima hardened right in front of both his friends. Night-Eye quickly captured the man as Mirio, and Shinso made sure Kirishima was okay. "Are you okay, mister?" A soft voice whispered. Eri up until this point had remained hidden behind the pillar Mirio told her to stay at, but was worried about her new friends. Kirishima got down on one knee, facing her, and pointed to the spot where he had been shot. "I'm fine, see? My quirk broke the needle, so no one got hurt. I promise." Eri sighed a sigh of relief, as did the other three, knowing that Kirishima wasn't injured. With Eri in Mirio's arms, the group made their way out of the building, while checking for any remaining heroes or hiding goons. Twice and Toga had disappeared just as quick as they appeared, but according to Fat Gum, they were all right. Sun Eater was unconscious and Fat Gum was weak, but both would recover quick. Rocklock had been hit with some rubble and had a small head injury, but thankfully he wouldn't have any permanent damage. Eraserhead greeted them all at the front of the now wrecked headquarters and led them all to an ambulance. Eri was quickly checked over and rushed to the hospital with Recovery Girl and Speed Dial. Mirio went with her as she didn't want to let him go and only had a few cuts and scratches for they tested him on the way to the hospital. Eraserhead took himself and Hitoshi home once they were both announced to be in good health and hugged his son tightly in private. The drive home was quiet, but that was the way they both liked it. Plus, they had a very hyperactive kitten and loud human-sized radio that loved to make up for the silence. The door flung open before Aizawa could get out his keys, and both were hit by surprisingly strong from such small arms around their legs. Izuku had seen their car, driving up, and at the door grabbed one of each of their legs and didn't want to let go. Since the LOV incident, he had been more clingy and was quite worried when he heard about the rescue mission. So the rest of the night was spent watching movies, cuddling on the couch, and giving Izuku ear scratches. He was happy with his family, but his mind couldn't stop going back to the little girl they had rescued. She reminded him a bit of Izuku, and he knew Hizashi wanted a big family, not including the cats. They were currently a family of 4, but maybe they could grow into 5. A week had passed since Eri's rescue, and the according to the hospital will be in good enough health to be released in the next day or so. Mirio, Kirishima, and Hitoshi had visited almost every day, which naturally meant Aizawa had to come as well. Nizu had taken notice of this, so being the drama-loving, nosy rat he is, he told Aizawa that Eri would be under his care after release from the hospital. Naturally, Aizawa demanded a pay raise, but all the teachers knew it was really so that he could spoil Eri. After letting Mirio and Kirishima know, the overly energetic and happy boys let Hitoshi and Aizawa go on their own to give Eri the good news. Eri's room was in the trauma ward and had been given a pink blanket and blue bunny stuffy by Aizawa as the white. Walls reminded her too much of the very place she had been rescued from. She was looking out her window at the garden outside when they entered and whipped her head towards them in fear. Her fear turned to happiness as she saw 2 of her favorite visitors, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. Aizawa just gave a small smile as he had been told by many his full-teeth smile scarred children for life, while Hitoshi gave her a hug. Eri scrunched her nose in confusion as she looked behind them. "Where is Red Riot and Lemillion?" she softly asked as she clutched her blanket and bunny in worry. "Don't worry, Bug," Hitoshi said to calm her. "We have some important news, and they wanted to let the 3 of us hang out alone." Her lips formed a small O in response, and looked to Aizawa for the news. "Well, kid, it looks like you will be living with me and my family after we get you out of here tomorrow," Aizawa announced. Eri's eyes just widened and finally was able to smile the way Lemillion had taught her. Hitoshi's grin widened at the sight, and Aizawa smiled the not-so-terrifying smile he reserved for his family only. "Well, Eri, my husband and youngest son are waiting outside. Do you want to meet them?" Eri fiddled with her blanket for a minute in nervousness, but gave a small nod. Hitoshi got up to get them, while Aizawa stayed by Eri's side. "No need to be nervous, little one. Izuku is younger than you, and while Hizashi is loud, he is a hero like me and won't hurt you. You promise?" "I promise, kid. Pinky promise." Aizawa stuck out his pinky, and Eri took it just like Kirishima had taught her and giggled. "Slow down, kid." Hitoshi's voice sounded from down the hall, and a familiar giggle sounded right after near Eri's room. "You ready?" Aizawa whispered. Eri just nodded her head, and another smile formed when she heard Hitoshi's voice again. "Gotcha!" Izuku squealed as his big brother grabbed him near Eri's door and walked in with the little boy on his hip. Eri took in the sight of her new little brother. He had wide green eyes and matching curly hair that looked quite fluffy. He had diamond-shaped freckles on his face, and his checks were a little red from running. His little ears and tail flicked and swished around, and he had a small smile as he nervously looked at her from the older boy's shoulder. He gave her a little wave, and Eri waved back. Mike walked in the room, quiet for once, and smiled at his kids. He leaned against the door frame, and Aizawa got up to join him. Hitoshi sat down where his dad had once sat and spun Izuku around to face his big sister. "Quit being shy, Zu. Introduce your spunky little self," Hitoshi demanded. "I'm Izuku, and I am 4 years old. I'm also a Nico. It's my quirk," Izuku said, and perked up when he mentioned his quirk. "You can pet my ears if you want. I don't mind." Eri nervously reached towards Izuku's head, not wanting to hurt his ears, and softly pet them. She unknowingly reached the sweet spot in his ears that practically made him melt, and with a purr, Izuku fell on her lap and curled up in a ball. This started Eri and jumped in surprise, but Izuku sat completely still as he was still in his melted mode. Hitoshi just laughed and pulled Izuku back into his lap and scratched his ears, gaining even louder purrs. "Don't worry, Eri. Izuku is okay. You pet a special spot in his ears that makes him really sleepy and happy super fast." While Izuku slowly woke up from his sudden catnap, Hizashi introduced himself and told her funny stories about Hitoshi and Aizawa training and little silly things he has caught Izuku doing when he doesn't think anyone is watching. Aizawa just quietly sat back as he listened to his new daughter's laughter and saw Hitoshi doing the same thing. Hitoshi looked down when he felt Izuku wiggling around. "Hey kid, you with us now?" he joked as Izuku sleepily blinked at him and then slowly nodded. "Eri, can I call you sissy?" Izuku asked with wide, hopeful eyes. Eri just giggled at his excitement and nodded. "Yay!" Izuku celebrated as he jumped up from Hitoshi's lap and onto Eri. "You are the best big sister ever." Izuku paused. "How old are you?" he asked, emphasizing on the R, and tilted his head. "I'm 6, Zuko," Eri said proudly, slightly puffing out her chest. "What about you, Toshi?" "I'm 15. "Cool. Why, thank you, Eri. See, Izuku, unlike you, Eri knows how to be nice. When you found out I was 15, you said you just because I'm a teenager." Hitoshi complained only to have Izuku respond by sticking his tongue at him. Hizashi just chuckled at his kids' antics, happy to see them all getting along. "Well, Eri, I won't tell you my age, but I will tell you I'm much older than you, and so is this lazy caterpillar." Izuku snickered at his papa's insult towards his dad and hopped off the bed to snuggle inside the sleeping bag with his dad. Aizawa just grunted and kept on sleeping. As the family enjoyed spending time with their newest addition, they failed to notice Izuku never mentioned his age and was quiet for the rest of the time. Time for the UA festival had finally arrived, and Izuku and Eri couldn't be more excited. The first thing they got to do was go watch Class 1B's play. According to Mirio, who was babysitting them while their parents worked security, it was a mashup of several other stories. But both kids loved it, and when they saw their dad and Papa before Bubba's class performed, they made sure to react to every last detail. The concert was even better. Izuku thought Jiro had a very pretty voice, and that Kaken looked awesome at the drums. Eri's favorite part was the ice chips and Aoima's disco ball belly button. Mirio had one sibling in each arm, so they could see better, and he loved the close-up view he got of their radiating smiles. At the end of the concert, they loudly cheered, and many surrounding them awed at their energetic energy. Mirio happily led them backstage at the end and helped clean up while the two children chatted with the class. They complimented everyone's awesome dance moves and the band members playing, which made Jiro and Mina beam with pride. Ilda even let Hitoshi leave early, so he could spend some time with his siblings as the class was almost done cleaning up. Well, if it isn't the class A hero wannabes that think they're better than us. A boy with very tall, dumb-looking hair, according to Izuku, proclaimed. "Hey!" Eri yelled at him and his friend. "Leave Bubba and our friends alone, you JRK." Izuku screamed. Looking quite embarrassed to have been yelled at by little kids, he and his friend attempted to look annoyed with a scoff and stumbled away. Hitoshi just ruffled both of their hair with a smile and led them to the beauty contest. Eri loved seeing all the pretty dresses on the girls and begged her brother to let her wear one too. Claiming she wanted to look pretty like them too, Hitoshi knelt down and told her she was the prettiest one out there and tickled her till she begged for mercy. Izuku giggled as he watched, but was soon screeching with laughter when both Hitoshi and Eri tickled him. They then explore some other booths made by the business and general ed kids for food. Eri, having found an entire $2 in the couch earlier that morning, was quite excited to buy her siblings a treat, but didn't have enough for both of them at any of the booths. Hitoshi watched as his little sister began to sniffle and pulled her into a one-armed hug as he texted with the others. Izuku joined into the hug seconds later, and Hitoshi grabbed some money of his own. He bought all three of them little hero trinkets based off Present Mic, as there was nothing for Eraserhead. Eri had a little smile on her face as the three made their way back to the dorms. The lights were all off, and when Izuku asked why, Hitoshi claimed they must have all been tired. Hitoshi opened the door for his siblings, as they all lived in the top floor since the summer camp attack. He flicked the lights on, and suddenly all of Class 1A jumped, yelling surprise. Spooked, Izuku yelped and clung to his brother's leg, and so did Eri, which nearly caused him to fall on top of them. Sato walked up to them in a chef's apron. "Do you two want to make candied apples with me?" Eri's sadness of being unable to treat her brothers was soon completely forgotten, and she happily passed the apples out to everyone, including Sato. Once she had one as well, they all bit in, and her eyes lit up. Izuku giggled at her excitement, and Hitoshi smirked. Later, when their parents came in to tell them to go to sleep, Eri handed them the last two apples made especially for them. She had taken some of the leftover chocolate syrup and made goggles for Dad and a music note for her papa. That night, everyone went to sleep happy, and Eri finally slept the entire night, nightmare-free. Izuku, on the other hand, was hard to put to bed as he was in the middle of a sugar rush, but eventually crashed and slept well through the rest of the night. The League had come over to discuss details about the hero course with Aizawa and Nizu, and was going well. They went over several possible issues and planned ways around it. Everyone was happy with the direction their plans were headed, and Kurojiri asked to talk to Aizawa and his family before he left. Aizawa accepted, and Kurojiri teleported the rest of his group of childlike adults home. The man made a mist, took a shaky breath, and teleported him and Aizawa to the 1A dorm's top floor. "Mr. Kurojiri," Izuku exclaimed happily as he hopped down from the couch to hug the man. "Hello, Izuku, how have you been?" The kind purple mist listened patiently as the young boy chatted away about lessons with Nizu, 1A's festival, and his awesome new big sister. He listened to every last word and reacted at the correct times. By the end of his ramble, Izuku takes deep breaths as he forgot to breath and went back to cuddling in his dad's lap. "I'm glad to hear you have been having fun and happy with your new family, Izuku. Now I have something important to tell your dad and Papa. So, can you go find your Papa? It shouldn't be too hard. Just listen for him. I'm sure he's somewhere near by yelling about who knows what." Kurojiri chuckles at the end, and Izuku smiled and hopped away, focused on the mission he had been trusted with. Just like Kurojiri predicted, Hisashi was proudly yelling about Eri's adorable fashion sense as she spun around in her new red overall dress with a white shirt underneath. Izuku ran and hugged his papa's legs, making him let out a yell in surprise. Both Izuku and Eri giggled happily as he dramatically put a hand to his heart and sighed, claiming, "You nearly gave your papa a heart attack, bud. Mr. Kurojiri wants to talk to you and Dad about something downstairs," Izuku explained as he continued to hug the man's leg. "We better not keep them waiting then," Hisashi said, throwing Izuku lightly in the air and grabbing Eri's hand. He walked them both to Hitoshi's room to hang out while the adults talked, and his mind wandered through all the things Kurojiri could possibly want to discuss. Present Mike walked downstairs and smiled at Kurojiri before sitting next to his husband. The two watched patiently as the man nervously tried to decide where to begin. He cleared his throat and apologized for being so nervous. "I'm sorry for making you two wait. I just don't know how to tell you all something." Aizawa just raised an eyebrow and started at the man to continue while Mike just looked confused. "You see, we once knew each other in the past." Mick's eyebrows shot up in surprise as his jaw dropped. Aizawa simply continued to stare and squeezed Mick's hand in comfort. Kurojiri took another shaky breath and continued. "My name wasn't always Kurojiri. It was given to me after I was saved. I got into what you could call an accident, and everyone I knew thought I had died. He paused again, and Aizawa had to restrain himself from forcing the next words out of the now mysterious man's mouth. As you know, I work with All for One. He was the one who saved me along with the help of a doctor friend of his. Hisashi felt his breath hitch as he thought of his old friend's death and asked, "Please, what is your real name?" The dark purple mist around Kurojire's face slowly disappeared, and a foggy version of their best friend's face appeared. Aizawa glared at the man as a single tear slipped down his face. "Say it. Say your real name." He yelled and was held back by Hisashi. "Oboro. My name was Oboro." "What do you mean was? You just said you aren't dead?" In his sadness, Aizawa couldn't hold back his anger as he had blamed himself for his friend's death and was furious to find out he had been alive the entire time. "I was in a coma for a while, as All for One, and the doctor used various medicines and quirks to heal me. I lost my memories for a time, and when they returned, so much time had passed, I feared you would hate me. And who knows what the Hero Agency would have done if they discovered I was alive. I wanted to return, but I didn't want to become a human experiment for the rest of my life, either." Aizawa had stood up when angrily shouting at his best friend, but fell to his knees at the end of the man's confession. The three of them could finally be together again, but the Hero Agency was in fact powerful, and he wouldn't put them past them to try and kidnap and experiment on Oboro. Tears were now falling down all three men's faces, but froze when Hitoshi's worried voice sounded from the hall. "Is everything okay? Izuku, wait." The little Nico ran down the hall, having slipped past his big brother, and threw himself into his dad's arms. Little tears were falling down his face as he saw their tears. "Why are you all crying? What's wrong?" he asked in worry as Hitoshi and Eri entered the room as well. "Well, Izuku," Aizawa pet his youngest son's head to calm him down. "It turns out Mr. Kurojire is an old friend of ours named Oboro, but it has to stay between us, okay?" Izuku nodded, and Hitoshi and Eri agreed as well. Izuku's face suddenly scrunched up in confusion, and he looked up at the mist man. "Mr. Kurojire Oboro, sir? What am I supposed to call you now?" His innocent question caused the entire room to laugh, and laughter could be heard in the house for the next couple of hours as funny stories and adventures were exchanged throughout the night. During all the chaos of a summer July, 15th flew by, and only Izuku was aware of everyone missing his birthday. The discovery of Eri and taking down of Overhaul kept his family busy as well. Time flew by, and then the school's festival took place in the beginning of November. Izuku wanted to say something about it, but some of his mother's words stayed firmly implanted in his brain. After his father left them in the spring, she quickly blamed him for his departure. He had made the mistake last year on his 3rd birthday to ask if he could get a present and never asked for anything again after that. "How dare you ask me for anything, you ungrateful little brat? If you hadn't been born, I would still be happy. Shut up for once, and then maybe all those around you could be happy again. Now leave me alone." Izuku knew his new family loved him, but he didn't want to be greedy. Eri needed time too, and he shouldn't take her needed attention away from her. As Izuku sat in the couch swinging his legs in thought, Aizawa walked in with a file in his hand. "Hey Aizu, do you know where everybody is?" he asked, crouching down to look him in the eye. The question snapped him from his thoughts, and he tried to remember when he had last seen everyone. I think Eri and Hito are playing a game upstairs, and Papa may be recording for his radio show." "Thanks, kid," his dad said as he picked him up to help him search for their family. He called for his kids from the hall, and soon the 4 of them headed down to Hisashi's soundproof recording room. Izuku and Eri giggled when their Dadzawa pulled Papamik's headphones off as Hitoshi watched amused and quietly snickered. "Well, kids," Aizawa said to his family as Hisashi was still clearly a kid at heart, "Niza did some digging through the bad man's files and found Eri's records." He squats down with Izuku in one arm and the file in the other. "Eri, it turns out your birthday is coming up, so you know what you want for a present?" Hearing this made Izuku excited and began to wiggle. "Can I get presents too?" he exclaimed, referring to his missed birthday. "No, you silly fuzzball. You have to wait till it's your birthday," Hitoshi jokingly explained with a chuckle. Izuku grew still and quiet as tears began to develop in his eyes. Hitoshi noticed this immediately and looked at his parents for an explanation. "What's wrong, Aizu? You'll get present just like Eri when it's your birthday. Aizawa tried to explain to comfort the boy, but it only made him more upset. But Izuku started, but shook his head and tried to stop crying. Hisashi crouched down and hugged Eri as she hated seeing Izuku upset and tried to calm Izuku down. But what, buddy? Can you tell us what's wrong, please? Izuku took a deep breath as cried. My birthday, was... He struggled to take another breath. Was 4 months ago. Hisashi screamed, what t? In surprise and accidentally made the Nico cry harder as the noise hurt his ears. Eri began to cry a little as Izuku cried, and Hisashi hugged her. As Aizawa took Izuku to his room as they had added soundproof pads to help him cancel out noise when it got to be too much for his ears. During the chaos of a younger one being upset, Hitoshi sent a text to his class stating he had an emergency. Chaos called 1A chat. Minizawa Police Car Light Emergency. Police Car Light Emergency. Police Car Light. Pinky Alien Monster Ribbon. Spill the tea. Teacup without handle. El Suzuka wannabe no, please don't. Spill the soba steaming bowl. Chem collision Now, is not trauma time, half and half. IL dad, raised hand medium light skin tone, waving in light skin tone, raised in medium light skin tone, waving in light skin tone. Please be nice to you fellow students Bakugo. Momo, can we focus on the fact that Hitoshi has an emergency? It seems important. Minizawa, yes it is. Thanks Momo. Human Pikachu, yeah? Way to go class mom. Minizawa, NYWAYS. It turns out Eri's birthday is coming up next month, and when Dadzawa told us Izuku wanted presents too, apparently during all the chaos this summer we missed his birthday and didn't realize it, so now both Eri and Izuku are upset and crying. Momo, oh dear, will they be alright? You can't see me, winking and laughing. The poor babies. Sugarman, I can bake them a birthday cake. Koda would playing with my bunny calm them down. Manly sharks so unmanly. I can't believe we missed the little dude's birthday. Minizawa, I was thinking we could cheer both of them up by having an early birthday party for them later today. Everyone quickly agreed to the idea, and Momo was happy to create lots of the decorations while Sato baked the cake, and Ilda took most of the class to the mall to buy presents. Hitoshi got them permission to leave campus, and it was his job to keep his little siblings distracted as his parents wanted to go buy them gifts as well. He plays several board games of their choice for the next few hours and got an adorable video of the two cuddling asleep on the couch during nap time while the Aristocats plays in the background. Both tried to insist they were too old for naps, but lost the fight when he mentioned their dad napping all the time. After an hour of nap time, he gently picked them and carried them downstairs as everything was ready. He shook them awake, with one in each arm, and watched as they rubbed sleep out of their eyes. Not having noticed everyone, Izuku pulls on his big brother's sleeve. Bubba, why are we downstairs? Look around you was all he managed to say before Eri squealed in excitement, and Izuku's excitement rose too. Eri had set her eyes on the banner in front of them reading, Happy Birthday, Izuku and Eri, and begged to be put down. She and Izuku ran from person to person giving hugs, and had the most fun they had in years. Games were played, and presents for both kids were opened. Both siblings were extremely happy and played until they dropped. The cake Sato made was amazing too. He created a 2-layer cake with the top layer decorated with Robin Hood and Izuku's name over the vanilla cake. Eri got the second layer with her name and unicorns in chocolate flavor. The night Izuku asked his papa if they could do the same thing next year, and that's exactly what they did. It became a tradition of sorts to have a small celebration on Izuku's actual birthday and have a big party with him and Eri near Eri's birthday. Many years passed, and all 3 Aizawa kids graduated UA, and their parents couldn't be any prouder. As the oldest, Hitoshi graduated years before his younger siblings and became an underground hero just like his dad. He was especially good at undercover work and taking down dangerous groups from the inside, as no one ever recognized his real voice with the constant voice-changing mask he wore and dark costume that covered everything but his gravity-defying hair. His hero name, according to the #1 hero, is Mind F, but he prefers to go by Mind Jack, the masked hero. As the middle child, Eri graduated second, only a year before Izuku did. She always hated violence as a kid, so she trained under Recovery Girl as a healer and helped in many search and rescue operations. With her quirk, she would rewind time to remove injuries or fast-forward it to speed up the healing process, depending on the severity of them. Her hero name became Pulse, the timely hero, and throughout her life has saved hundreds and was quickly reaching numbers into the thousands. She can also be found at many recovery operations and visiting hospitals during her days off, healing many sick for free. Koda became a hero the same year as her, and rumor has it that she has been spotted with a shiny new ring on her finger. Izuku graduated last, but became the most successful. Once he reached time for high school, Nizu had already taught him for years and insisted on Izuku continuing as his personal student till he graduated. He put Izuku in the business, general, and support courses. Izuku wanted to become a hero, but a different type. He wanted to be dependable and save everyone, including other heroes. Izuku had understood since he was a child that life wasn't always fair and wanted to give me people a better chance at life. His first project was to take down the corrupted version of the hero society. Heroes needed more than just a flashy quirk and were able to get away with much destruction without a consequence. He quickly worked his way up the system, and with Nizu's help, released several very needed bills. More opportunities for people with villain quirks and weak quirks to become heroes were made. License for those with quirks that could be used to help with work were carefully developed, and so was new admissions tests for new heroes in the making. Current heroes was more carefully observed, and those with increasing accounts of destruction and innocent bystander death or injuries had their license revoked until they could prove to me more caring and careful. Endeavor was one of the first heroes for this to happen to, and managed to greatly improve and regain title as #1 hero for a while before Bakugo fulfilled his promise to Izuku and held the #1 title for years. People like the League of Vigilantes became heroes and quirk discrimination decreased. Some people were still jerks, but it was much better than before. Hawks was freed from the Hero Commission's control, and Nizu placed a trusted retired underground hero in the Commission Hero President's place after publishing their past actions. Eventually, the president position was given to Izuku and Aizawa, and Mike retired, happy to watch their children's success from the sidelines. Not just their adopted children either, they were proud of all the problem children, Hitoshi's class especially. They always stayed in touch with one another and continued to push each other to get better. They all managed to stay in the top 100 ranks. Even Mineta, as the girls managed to set him up with a partner and threw his prevented nature out the window for them. Aizawa, threatening him a few times, helped too. The future of heroes was looking good and was only going to go up from there. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Was Class 1A Rescued Kitten. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to Ash the Nerd for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on Wattpad for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you soon in the next video.